Audio is hovering at minus 12 decibels. We're go.
Bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're bringing
Al-Qaeda,
they're bringing
Antifa,
they're bringing
oranges,
they're bringing
clean coal,
they're bringing
Norway,
they're bringing
China,
they're bringing
the thing called the Nobel Prize,
they're bringing
windmills,
they're bringing
water, big water, ocean water.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Jake Ugranik is sparing with you on impeachment day. Okay, now it has not yet happened, so ladies and gentlemen, we will probably get them later in the show. But we're not positive it's gonna happen while we're live, but let's hope so, cross our fingers. So obviously we have impeachment news. We have Donald Trump's insane letter to Nancy Pelosi, and then we've got campaign news. Buttigieg got caught, that was fun.
Yeah, look, I don't like false advertising. I feel like Trump's letter to Pelosi, which we'll get to in just a minute, is really not that insane. It's very Trump-like. It's what you would expect from Trump.
No, I totally agree, but that's exactly the point I was gonna make in the story, which we will a little bit later in the program. We just got used to his insanity. I mean, those comments from any other politician in the pre-Trump era, 1 out of the 30 comments would have immediately caused a firestorm that would have been the biggest controversy of the year.
100%.
Anyway, we'll get to that in a second as well. But also news on Elizabeth Warren's campaign. So a lot of drama in the show today.
I like that story.
I know you
Mostly
do.
because I get to bring back something I said recently on the show.
Uh-oh, you got clips, you got receipts?
of course.
Okay, receipts later in the program.
course.
All right, let's start with impeachment.
All right, let's do it. Well, let me just note, the House of Representatives is voting on impeachment today, and I just want to warn you guys, it's more of the same. A lot of the same arguments are regurgitated over and over again. However, on the eve of the impeachment vote, Donald Trump wanted to make his thoughts on this impeachment process known in an official fashion, and so he sent a letter to Nancy Pelosi. And as one can expect, he says Trump-like things that would be deemed insane under any other president, but this is Trump, so it's normalized. I'm gonna read you the relevant excerpts and we'll respond to them or make fun of him. So first he says, this impeachment represents an unprecedented and unconstitutional abuse of power by Democrat lawmakers, unequaled in nearly 2.5 centuries of American legislative history.
Well, first of all, it's not unprecedented because 2 other presidents have been impeached. Second of all, it's not unconstitutional because impeachment is in the Constitution.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it's interesting that he uses the phrase abuse of power because that happens to be one of the articles of impeachment against him.
It's also interesting that, like a child, he keeps saying, I'm rubber and you're glue.
Right.
So he says it throughout the letter. He said it throughout his career. That's what unintelligent people say, or to be fair, little kids, when they don't have a good comeback. They're like, oh yeah, you did abuse of power.
Let me give you more. The articles of impeachment introduced by the House Judiciary Committee are not recognizable under any standard of constitutional theory, interpretation, or jurisprudence. They include no crimes, no misdemeanors, and no offenses whatsoever. You have cheapened the importance of the very ugly word impeachment.
Make up your mind. Is it an ugly word or is it super important? He's such a goofball. This is how you know he wrote the letter.
Sort of. I mean.
No. I guarantee you. I don't guarantee it. I'm speculating as to how the letter got written. But knowing Trump and knowing his team, my guess is what happened was his team wrote the letter because it has words he does not know in it.
Including, it's not just the words, it's the phrasing. Like, constitutional theory he has never uttered those words together.
No
ever.
way. Constitutional theory. What name so?
And jurisprudence?
Go. No chance that Donald Trump has ever said that. Okay, now I'm exaggerating, but not by much. But that you have cheapened the very ugly word of impeachment is such a Trump thing. Everybody knows that's Trump. So my guess is his guys wrote it and then he edited. Not good enough. I don't know what jurisprudence means, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add something people understand. You've cheapened the very ugly word impeachment.
Yes.
How could you cheapen a really ugly word?
Yeah, the exclamation marks are certainly his touch. It's his touch, it's what he does. So by proceeding with your invalid impeachment, you are violating your oaths of office, you are breaking your allegiance to the Constitution, and you are declaring open war on American democracy. Now, I want to respond substantively to this. Look, if this were simply a partisan effort to oust Donald Trump and he had done nothing wrong, believe it or not, I would defend him because that would be wrong and you don't want to set that precedent. The reason why this impeachment process is incredibly important is because he asked a foreign government to, I keep saying dig up dirt on his political rival, Joe Biden, but in reality, he didn't even want Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, to do the investigation. He didn't really care about the investigation. What Trump wanted was the optics of the investigation. He wanted the announcement of the investigation to hurt his political rival, Joe Biden. And at the time, and honestly, in a lot of these polls currently, Joe Biden is leading in the Democratic race, right? And so, yes, he is 100% Trump's political rival. That's why he was hyper-focused on Biden. What's frustrating to me about Democrats is that during these proceedings, they haven't brought up the fact that on camera, Donald Trump urged the leader of China to investigate Biden and Elizabeth Warren, who were the two frontrunners at the time. Come on, guys, wakey.
And investigate Elizabeth Warren for nothing in particular.
Right.
He's so obvious, embrace God, the Democrats. Anyway, but look, let's concentrate on Trump here. I want to just repeat everything here because it's textbook projection. You're violating your oath of office. He's charged with violating his oath of office, abusing his power. You're breaking your allegiance to the Constitution. Instead of protecting American national security interests, he looked for his own personal interests, violating the Constitution, and you're declaring open war on American democracy. I don't know any statement that describes Donald Trump better than declaring open war on American democracy. Just does not believe that the Justice Department should serve the American people. He thinks it should serve him. He is looking to get rid of voters that might not vote for him. He did that through Chris Kobach, and we can go on and on. A violation of the law and procedure and the Constitution repeatedly. That is the number one concern about Donald Trump right now, is that he just does not value American democracy, he does not believe in it. And he keeps saying, well, dictators in other countries, when in North Korea, when he says something, everybody stands up and applauds. It should be like that here. No, it shouldn't be like a dictatorship here in America. So here we go again. I'm rubber, you're glue. Every one of these things is I'm rubber, you're glue. In reality, this describes him to a T.
So let me give you more. And by the way, this was 6 pages of Trump ranting. So I know there's a lot that I'm sharing with you here, but you should read the full letter so you can kind of get the gist, the full scope of his insanity. He also writes, even worse than offending the founding fathers, you are offending Americans of faith by continually saying you pray for the president when you know this statement is not true, unless it is meant in a negative sense. He totally wrote that. Yeah, and by the way, he's right about that part.
Oh, thank you. I was gonna say the same thing. That's actually the one thing he's right about. Like when Nancy Pelosi comes in, she's like, I am praying for the president. Oh, come on, okay. Nobody believes that, right. Okay. But it's also childish of Trump to be like, unless you mean it in a negative sense. Okay, whatever. And she's not offending people of faith. She's offending anyone who is put off by obvious political theater.
I only included this next sentence because it made me laugh out loud at my desk. It's the phrasing, it's the way you phrase this. It is a terrible thing you are doing, but you will have to live with it, not I. Come on, not I.
Just this mentality is this big, man. He's just, my God. Anyway, look, Anna and I started the show by talking about this. Like, in a sense, there's no news here because this is the normal madness of Donald Trump, the Mad King, right? On the other hand, if any other president had said one of these lines, it would have been the biggest scandal in his presidency. So I'm gonna get to one a little bit later that I would have ended Obama's presidency. But we're so used to the president being insane that everybody's like, oh right, he wrote an insane letter, okay, now let's move on. Like, because that's what happened, because it's Tuesday, or in this case, Wednesday.
Right. He also says you are turning a policy disagreement between 2 branches of government into an impeachable offense. Now, what he's referring to there is the military aid, which Congress, which of course includes Republicans, this is a bipartisan effort, appropriated for Ukraine. He held that military aid up, and he claimed that the reason why he was doing so was because he wanted to investigate corruption within Ukraine. But the problem here is he fired the ambassador to Ukraine who was actually fighting corruption in Ukraine, right? So that was Marie Yovanovitch. It was all complete and utter BS, right? Like he doesn't care about corruption. That is not what he was concerned about. What he was more concerned about than anything else was the announcement of the investigation into his political rival, Joe Biden. Let me give you more. You view democracy as your enemy. That's hilarious.
Okay, again, projection. They're gonna study this guy in psychological textbooks.
So I'm gonna bring up a story, reference a story that we did yesterday and talk about the real assault on democracy in America right now. In both Georgia and Wisconsin, Republican lawmakers have purged the voter rolls. And oh, what a surprise. Most of the people who have been purged from the polls are likely to vote for Democrats. So that is a real violation of our democratic process, but the GOP doesn't care about that. And by the way, if I were a Democratic lawmaker, I would be hyper-focused on that. I would make a big stink about that every day. If Republicans were victimized that way by Democrats, they would make a big stink about it. They wouldn't let it go. But Democrats, they let it go, and this happens all the time now. Every time there's a big election coming up, voters get purged from the polls. Democrats do nothing about it.
Okay, look, there's that one is among the quotes that I was referring to. There's others. You're the ones interfering in America's elections. You're the ones subverting America's democracy. Here we go again. I'm rubber, you're glue. Nonsense. But you view democracy as your enemy. This is an illegal partisan attempted coup. So if Obama had written any of this to a Republican Speaker of the House, just out of the blue, like if they had, not out of the blue, but like when they did their 9th investigation of Benghazi, and if he said, witch hunt, it's a hoax, it's fake news, okay, it's an attempted coup.
Not I.
Yeah, no, it is the one, you are the one doing it, you bad person, not I, okay. Any of this, we'd have been like, okay, well, I guess Obama's got to go, and the Democrats would have stepped in and said it's becoming a distraction. Biden's good enough as vice president to move on. Like this is, but the emperor has no clothes, but we got used to it. Oh yeah, the emperor's walking around naked. A total raving lunatic madman.
Luckily not literally walking around naked, that would be unfortunate. But Pelosi did respond to this. So she was talking to reporters on Capitol Hill, and here's what she had to say in regard to Trump's letter.
Your reaction to the president's letter?
No reaction, it's ridiculous.
You have no reaction, why not?
No, I haven't really fully read it. We've been working. I've seen the essence of it though, and it's really sick.
So that was her response, it was really sick. And of course, that led to a number of right-wingers in the media losing their minds over what she had to say.
Oh, come on.
It was just, yeah.
I mean, look, so Trump yells at her at the top of his lungs like a madman. They're like, bravo, and we'll get to that in a minute. Oh, man, brilliant, scholarly work. Come on, you lunatics. All right, and then Pelosi says, man, that's sick. And they're like, oh, how dare she? I'm so offended. Can you believe she said something so mean about Donald Trump?
No, you guys.
Really? Come on, guys, you're all unbelievable liars.
He said in the letter, he wrote in the letter, more due process was afforded to those accused in the Salem witch trials.
Okay.
Come on, guys. It's just ridiculous.
Look, if you're a Republican voter, aren't you annoyed by your own politics? I get it. You're in love with Donald Trump, and I got it. I don't want to hear what you think of him, okay? But when your politicians come out and go, oh, that letter by Donald Trump was perfect, and it was just the right tone. But can you believe Pelosi said he was sick? Like, don't you think like, yeah, dude, give it a rest, right? Like when Pelosi says, oh, I'm praying for the president, we say, give it a rest. We know you're not praying for the president. I mean, I don't know, do Republican voters care about the truth at all anymore about anything? Or are they like, oh yeah, my God, poor Donald Trump, I can't believe Pelosi called him sick.
No, but it's interesting. So I'm sure there's some portion of Republican voters, I'm not talking about lawmakers. Lawmakers know what's going on, right? They're there, they're living it. But I would venture to say that some of the voters just don't trust the media. And for the longest time, I didn't really understand it because I'm like, but it's right here. They're using Trump's own words. They're showing you Trump's videos. Like the evidence is right in front of you. But now more than ever, I can understand why people are so distrustful of the media. When the media regurgitates smears of people they don't like, they need to understand what they're doing, unfortunately, is they're losing complete credibility, complete trust from people that we need to believe the truth, right?
Yeah, and look, I get it. Obviously, 77% of Americans believe there's fake news. So how's that for devastating? And that's not all Republicans. But in this case, all they're doing is quoting Donald Trump, and Hannity and Lou Dobbs and the rest are like, thinks this is the greatest letter ever. They don't dispute it at all. But anytime there's something negative, it doesn't matter if it's Trump himself saying it. MAGA guys are like, nope, fake news. Trump said it. How could it be fake news if Trump said it? Nope, damaging. So it's fake news.
Right.
I bet Pelosi said it. Okay, what are you gonna do with madness? But last thing that I liked here is that I also liked that he had to read 6 pages for the first time in his life. So anyway, he said, I write this letter to you for the purpose of history and to put my thoughts on a permanent and indelible record. First of all, he didn't write the indelible part, never heard of that 100%. Word. He's like, indelible, why? Did we get a pastrami sandwich from the indelible record? Okay, anyway, but I'm amused by the idea because he's like, oh yeah, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, this is going on your permanent record. Let's see if you get into college now.
That's hilarious. All right, well, let's get to the Republican reaction to the letter because it's very different from the reaction you just saw on this show. So, following Donald Trump's angry, ranting letter toward Nancy Pelosi over the impeachment investigation, a number of right-wingers on television and in the media defended Trump and the letter itself, saying that it was excellent, it was perfect. And what you're about to see, I promise you, is not an SNL act. This is real life. This is what they claim they really believe.
The president today wrote a beautiful letter, a terrific letter.
A powerful, scathing beatdown.
And he did so today with a scathing letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
I hope everybody has a chance to read that letter.
That historic marker.
It's hard hitting.
That standard he put down.
I mean, the letter is hard hitting, but the letter is pretty darn, on point.
It was comprehensive.
Yeah, everybody should go read that letter. It is a masterpiece. It is the Gettysburg Address of smear job, false accusations.
In point of fact, it was elegant.
What a response. It's a historical document.
The president really pointed out the flaws and the arguments.
I loved every word of his letter.
I think the president was absolutely right.
I'm glad that he wrote it.
I'm glad that he did it.
What the president did was lay out the procedural flaws in the House process.
The president is teaching Republicans how to fight.
I think it was well written, and it was definitely worth it.
You come at him with a club, and he's going to come at you with something bigger and harder.
It put her and the radical Dems who have attacked this president mercilessly for over 3 years precisely where they should be.
President Trump went on to utterly destroy the Pelosi and the Democrats and the Schiff show and the Nutty Nadler Schiff show.
The ignorance is institutionalized amongst the party of hate.
The president also shredding Pelosi's second claim.
They read this letter and they immediately pounced. Watch.
Another wonderful JR-rated compilation. For the woman, I don't know what her name is, who said that it was beautifully written. Here's one line, my favorite line from the 6-page letter. It is a terrible thing you are doing, but you will have to live with it, not I. Like, it's just like, it's nonsense. It's just 6 pages of complete and utter nonsense. I'd be shocked if they actually read it, right? They're just primed and ready to defend it no matter what.
The name of that woman was Amy Tarkanian. She's the one who said, I loved every word of this letter. Look, I'm gonna be fair to Laura Ingraham. She said it was scathing and it was hard hitting. Those are true. It was scathing and that was Donald Trump's way of fighting back, over the top, super aggressive. So, she said it was on point. Obviously, we disagree on that, but it's okay to call the letter tough or hard hitting. But calling it beautiful, elegant. Lou Dobbs called it elegant. Come on, come on, terrific, comprehensive, a historic marker. Like, seriously, I mean, look, I don't know how to categorize guys like Lou Dobbs. First thought is Sith Lord. All he needs is a little hood over because he's got the red eyes.
Yeah.
So he's already like 3/4 of the way towards being a Sith Lord.
No, I've been asking myself, like, how is it possible for someone to defend Trump even with like this flood of evidence proving that he's a bad guy who doesn't actually respect our Constitution or democracy? And I think it's because he's high. Like, his eyes are so bloodshot. He's sedated. He's on something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
kidding.
if he went to the house where they told him to get out, but he didn't, and he had a lobotomy. I don't know, but like, has he lost his mind? But like, it's one thing to defend Donald Trump. Like I said, Laura Ingraham saying scathing, and that shows how to fight for Republicans, etc. I get it. I don't agree, but I get it. But to call it elegant and beautiful and masterpiece, now you kind of have to lose your mind. Like you. And what I'm trying to figure out is, did he lose his control of his mind? Or is he just like, yeah, man, who cares? Like, no holds barred, let's just lie. Let's like just take everything and turn it on its head so we can get in power and make sure that minorities don't run this country. Whatever, dude, let's just go. All right, what should we call it? Maybe they have like a running gag in the production room. They're like, what do you, how about like pretty? And he's like, not good enough. Well, let's go with it, beautiful.
I mean, it's a word that he uses a lot, right? It was a beautiful call. It was a perfect call. It's a lot of the language that he uses when he's defending himself, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And then apparently it was like the Gettysburg Address. 402 clowns ago. Okay, so no, but guys, last thing on this is important. It's funny because it's so absurd, but it's real life and they're in power. So our country has now become so divided that a certain percentage of it just does not believe in reality anymore. They see insane letters where Donald Trump is yelling at the top of his lungs at the Speaker of the House, charging her with an attempted coup and saying that she's the one that's somehow abused her office when he's the one charged with abuse. But I mean, all the insane things that he writes in there. And they look at it and they think, no, that's a beautiful, poetic, Gettysburg Address-like letter. They really believe it. So the Fox News guys, I don't know if they believe it or they're just getting paid for it, but their audience totally believes it.
Yep.
It's at least a third of the country. A third of the country is walking around like zombies, believing things that are not remotely true. How do we interact? We don't speak the same language anymore. They just refuse to believe in facts. So, man, that's a real giant problem for this country.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we will show you examples of Republican hypocrisy when it comes to the impeachment. And it's not a video or a compilation that we put together. It's actually a video put together by other Republicans who want to hold Trump accountable. Yes, they exist. We'll be right back.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in there.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, I don't know, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years,
Right.
believing that it was actual berries. Yeah. She's like, these aren't real berries at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got news for you. Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you got to force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
Cenk Uygur joins us.
We are progressive and unapologetically so. Very happy to say that millennial and Gen Z generations are massively progressive along with us.
Democrats, they've been so weak for so long. For God's sake, fight for your side.
I would not like to compromise with Republicans. I would like to defeat them. Lynn, do you support Donald Trump?
Yes, I like Donald Trump.
Well, that's why we think you're racist. The 5 black kids in Central Park did not commit the rape. He said, who cares? Keep them in prison anyway. They probably did something. He's a terrible guy. Very fine people on the side chanting, Jews will not replace us. He says we should ban all Muslims. Well, that's bigotry by definition. He said it during the campaign trail over and over again. Called Latinos criminals and rapists. See, you're used to Republicans being strong on television and Democrats cowering. New day in America. Progressives, we actually fight back.
right, back on the Young Turks. Let me read one YouTube super chat first. William Emberson says, Jenka and Anna are killing it with commentary on Trump's letter. I just wish the impeachment had teeth. In the words of Keenan, hashtag ain't nothing gonna happen. Guys, I wanna talk about this a little bit later, but yeah, I got a feeling of a little bit of gloom, kind of like I did right before the election about this impeachment process today. So like, I was like, oh no, I think the Democrats have made a significant mistake. Okay, but let's do that a little bit later. Let me read you now member comments. Sheikh Yer Buttigieg writes in, Sheikh Yer Buttigieg, I got it. Don, I read it so earnestly. Sheikh Yer Buttigieg. Anyway, Donnie's getting head start on Festivus. The airing of grievances is a Festivus tradition. After dinner will be feats of strength. The fake Christian is hoping for a Festivus miracle if he thinks he can avoid impeachment. All right, Sheikh, I enjoyed that comment. I bathe in Trump's Twitter's tears. Wrote this, just renewed my membership. After watching TYT for a few years, I was in a Discord server where someone on the right wing tried to spew talking point after talking point, and I was able to dismantle each one of them with great ease to the point where he had to revert to, well, you can't trust independent news sources, they all have an agenda. I give huge thanks to TYT for educating me on these issues so that I could do that. It felt so good.
Thank you.
That's really great to hear. Thank you so much. TYT.com/join and become a member. Get the show, all of it, anytime you want. And TYT.com/gift if you want to give it as a Christmas gift. And please participate in the affiliate program. That way you can make money selling membership. It's TYT.com/win-win to find out more. It almost sounds like a Trump thing. Win-win. Okay, anyway, Aqualad, sorry that I even brought that up. Last one, Aqualad writes in, my representative is Bob Latta. I never felt the need to write him, but I did today. Something about seeing him give Trump talking points really drove the point home that all Republicans are the same. I think this is a really important point that's being made here. He said, I told him how unbelievably disappointed I was with his blind loyalty or unbelievable ignorance. I don't expect him to read my letter, but I had to voice my feelings. This whole process really making me consider running for office someday. Yeah, look, that's an important point because there is no distance between the Republican Party and Donald Trump. And so when you see the mainstream media gaslighting you like Donald Trump is some sort of exception, remember, every single Republican, with the exception of Justice Amash, who no longer is a Republican that we're gonna get to in a second, is voting with Donald Trump. So there's no distance at all. The Republican Party is the exact same thing as Donald Trump. So if you think Donald Trump has lost his mind, every Republican representative nationally, every Republican senator has lost their mind just like Donald Trump. All right, what's next?
Okay, so the House of Representatives is debating and also voting on the articles of impeachment, which include abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Now, the arguments that you're likely to hear from this congressional meeting is similar to what you've already been hearing. However, one speech did stand out, and that was the speech given by former Republican Justin Amash. Now, he left the Republican Party after the Mueller report was revealed. He read the full report and realized that Donald Trump did in fact obstruct justice in the Mueller investigation. And so he's giving a speech in front of the House of Representatives to explain why Donald Trump's actions with the government officials in Ukraine should lead to his impeachment and removal. Take a look.
I rise today in support of these articles of impeachment. I come to this floor not as a Democrat, not as a Republican, but as an American who cares deeply about the Constitution, the rule of law, and the rights of the people. Impeachment is about maintaining the integrity of the office of the presidency and ensuring that executive power is directed toward proper ends in accordance with the law. We need not rely on any other branch or body to endorse our determinations. We have the sole power of impeachment. In Federalist number 65, Alexander Hamilton wrote that high crimes and misdemeanors, quote, are those offenses which proceed from the misconduct of public men, or in other words, from the abuse or violation of some public trust. They are of a nature which may, with peculiar propriety, be denominated political as they relate chiefly to injuries done immediately to the society itself, end quote. President Donald J. Trump has abused and violated the public trust by using his high office to solicit the aid of a foreign power, not for the benefit of the United States of America, but instead for his personal and political gain.
It's very rare to see anyone in politics or the media be principled these days. And while I'm sure I disagree with Justin Amash on a number of political issues and social issues, I give him a lot of credit because he's putting his political career on the line to be principled and do the right thing. And that's something to applaud.
100%. So he's actually one of the most right-wing guys in Congress. And so on policies, we disagree with him on an overwhelming majority of the cases. But there's no way around the fact that he showed incredible courage. And for that, he was shown the door. The Republican Party turned on him en masse, as expected. And they said, principles? What kind of a monster are you with principles and caring about facts and the law and the Constitution? We don't do that here. We're craven. So in their rejection of Justin Amash, who is a deep conservative, he was part of the Freedom Caucus, the most conservative branch in the House. In their rejection of him, they proved that they never cared about principles. That all they care about is partisanship and raw power. And so it's great to see Amash making the case here. But one more thing that's important, it always takes former Republicans to fight hard. Because, and again, because he's a former Republican doesn't mean he's a progressive or even a moderate. He's still very right wing, he's just no longer in the party. And so Democrats should be saying the things that Amash said. Remember why Amash flipped? He flipped before Ukraine because he read the Mueller report and he's like, this is 10 cases of obstruction of justice. There's no way around it. It is plain as day. No human being can read this report and not think that Donald Trump broke the law. They didn't charge him with that. They didn't put it as one of the articles of impeachment. The Democrats didn't. Here's a former Republican who's deeply right wing going, why didn't you charge him with that? And so I had this a little bit sense of doom here as I saw Nadler speaking. And I like Nadler and he's pushed for impeachment, so I'm not against him. But as he was talking today about how there's a clear pattern of wrongdoing, I thought, man, that sounds vague. No, he broke campaign finance law with the Ukraine call. He did extortion. He broke campaign finance laws in regards to the hush money. His co-conspirators in prison, and he did obstruction of justice in the Russia case and the Ukraine case. That is 5 things that are illegal. Illegal, say illegal.
Yes.
They were afraid to say illegal, but then it sounds vague. He also said to our founding generation, Nadler did, abuse of power was a specific, well-defined offense. Maybe to our founding fathers, but not so much today. And so the Democrats, I'm so afraid they might have bungled this.
So I think you're making such a good point about the abuse of power charge and how vague they're being. Because remember, Republicans during the Obama administration constantly argued that he was abusing his power simply by signing executive orders, right? So if you are a voter, a Republican voter, conservative voter who isn't paying close attention to these impeachment hearings and you hear the phrase abuse of power in regard to Donald Trump, well then you're gonna think about the Obama administration and how you believed and Republicans overall believed he was abusing his power, and you're gonna think that there's some sort of double standard here. When in reality, there isn't a double standard. What Obama did was legal. What Trump has been doing is illegal, encouraging and actually coercing a foreign government to meddle in our elections. That is illegal. That undermines our entire democratic process.
Now I'm positive they made a mistake.
Of course they did.
So abuse of power sounds like your opinion, man. Breaking the law sounds like something you should get impeached over. God, the Democrats are so weak. God, they're unbelievably weak. What is wrong with saying he broke the law? Well, they overthink it. Well, what if we can't, but they're gonna think it's a criminal trial instead of a political trial. Maybe we're gonna offend Republican voters. And you know one of the things they're afraid of, and I also realized that today, and it's my bad that I have to not point this out earlier. I have in other contexts, but not in this context. So they're really worried about that the Republicans using this to raise more money. It's not that they were worried about the poll numbers. It's not that they're worried about, it's gonna swing momentum in the elections towards Donald Trump. They're worried that the Republicans are gonna raise more money because the Republican voters are mad, right? And they're obsessed with money. So that's why there's this this is solemn and sad and we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. And I don't know that it's illegal, but I would do abuse of power.
Yeah,
please don't get mad and give them money. Oh my God, oh my God.
Again, they lead from a place of fear and they think that voters are dumb and that they can't see through what they're doing, right? And so when they approach this whole impeachment investigation from a place of fear and they water down, they themselves are watering down what Trump has done. Well, then they're gonna lose the whole thing and Trump is still gonna have an easy time raising money because he's going to, as he always does, take control of the entire narrative and he's gonna make himself the victim. And that's exactly what he's been doing. It's a witch hunt, they're coming after me. They can't get over what happened in 2016.
Man, maybe Amash should lead the proceedings. No, but seriously, the House sends over House managers to actually be the prosecutors in the Senate trial. So once they take the impeachment vote and Donald Trump is impeached later today, I think put Amash in there. Why? I never want to help conservatives or Republicans. It's not about helping Amash. It's about, you don't have very many fighters, so you might as well take an ex-Republican because that guy will at least fight.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we have more on the impeachment. There were some pretty big stories today, including Tulsi Gabbard's views on impeachment and how she wants to go in a completely different direction. We'll be right back.
Feeling very good about this.
Red leather, yellow leather. Purple suede. Postmates, game one. Everybody doing? Welcome TYT members to the event you've been waiting an entire year for. It's Postmates. You guys are OGs. You have been together working at this network for, I don't know if you know this, 16 plus years.
Don't cut any cameras. Don't cut any cameras.
I feel like John is playing down how much him and Brooke have been preparing. In fact, I saw them witness exclusive report doing a Harry Potter quiz in preparation. It started a fight. Did you see that?
You witnessed that quiz or you participated? This smells like collusion.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for that to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources.
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
Welcome back to TYT, Anna and Cenk with you. So I want to read a few announcements, a few live reads before I get to member comments. And it's going to be quick because we got to get to the rest of the stories. But first, if you're looking for a place to keep your money, Aspiration is a great option. It's a financial institution that will not invest your money in dirty companies or the fossil fuel industry. So check them out. Go to aspiration.com/TYT. Also, for our members, we have our latest episode of Hostmates coming up. This is an annual thing we're doing now. It's a fun game show that we do internally. We film it. There's a lot of good production value behind it. And this year, it's the OGs versus the newbies. Last year, Cenk and I won. Did we defend our championship? I don't know. I guess we'll see. Is that what they say in sports?
Something along those, defend our title.
Our title, sure, okay, whatever. So you gotta watch to find out. And it'll be available to stream on Friday, December 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So make sure you check it out. If you're not a member and you wanna watch it, you can join by going to tyt.com/join. And finally, Shop TYT. It looks like they extended this sale. You can take 20% off site-wide by using the promo code HOLIDAYS at shoptyt.com.
So I don't know that this was sanctioned. Okay, so all right, they've gone rogue at shoptyt.com. So you need to go nuts. 20% off holidays. Okay, go.
And I'm gonna read one member comment. It's from Chickenfoot. Cenk, I made the same bet you did with Anna, but I made the bet with my daughter that Trump would be gone before the election. I already paid her after the Mueller report. I could see how weak the Democrats truly are, and after listening to all the hearings, I don't feel any better about the bet.
Yeah, no, for the first time today, I started feeling a little wobbly about the bet. Like
you thought about the bet? I actually forgot about the bet, believe it or not.
No, when I saw Nadler's comments, I was like, uh-oh, I might have lost some money here. My only hope is Donald Trump. Take that out of context. That he's gonna bungle it, that he's gonna somehow John Bolton's gonna come off the top rope. He's gonna call witnesses. He might, if he testifies, then we're gold. But if Donald Trump just shuts up, and which is impossible, for the next couple of months, the Democrats will definitely bungle it, and he'll survive.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the rest of the news. A conservative group known as Republicans for the Rule of Law is demanding that Republican members of Congress hold Donald Trump accountable and vote in favor of impeaching him. In fact, they decided to compare Republicans today to the GOP during the Nixon impeachment. And during the Nixon impeachment, Richard Nixon refused to comply with subpoenas, and Republican lawmakers actually held him accountable for that. So they have put together this ad, which is going to air on Fox News during Fox and Friends of all places. And I absolutely love it. So let's take a quick look.
When Nixon obstructed Congress and refused to comply with subpoenas, Republicans in his own party stood up to him.
If we refuse to recommend that the president should be impeached because of his defiance of the Congress, then future respondents will be in the position where they can determine themselves what they're going to provide in impeachment inquiries, what they're not going to provide.
There is no valid claim on the part of the president to ignore our subpoenas. The historical precedent we're setting here is so great. If we do not pass this article today, the whole impeachment power becomes meaningless.
Now, President Trump refuses to comply with congressional subpoenas. Will today's Republican Party defend the president's obstruction or defend the rule of law?
I can answer that question. They are going to defend the obstruction.
Yeah, 100%. But it's a good ad, and it's fighting hard because it's Republicans. Democrats, you want to do any ads? The country hates Donald Trump. You want to get in the fight? So we got to rely on Republicans that are never Trumpers to make ads against Donald Trump. So I'm glad they're doing it. I don't know who it is.
It's an organization known as Republicans for the Rule of Law. They exist, right?
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know what it's called. I don't know who's behind it, and I don't know what their intentions are.
So the executive director is Sarah Longwell. I'm not familiar with her, but I do want to give you her quote. She says, Republicans should remember their forebears and as well as the precedent they are setting and uphold their duty to the Constitution. Look, guys, remember, the lawmakers who are defending Trump aren't defending him because they genuinely believe he is innocent of wrongdoing. They're defending him because they're looking out for themselves in their own political careers. Trump's voters still stand behind him. And if some of these Republican lawmakers speak out against Trump or vote in favor of impeachment or vote in favor of removal, their political careers are in jeopardy. So at the end of the day, when it comes to Republicans who aren't in office and don't have anything to lose by speaking out, they will speak out, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's really disheartening about all of this, because there's no principle in the Republican Party right now.
Yeah, I like the effort, but to Anna's point, we're all having a nonsense conversation. There are no principles. Certainly in the Republican Party, some folks in the Democratic Party have principles. But all they care about is, am I gonna win or am I gonna lose my own seat? Period. Any other discussion is pointless and does not understand politics.
Well, let's move on to a Democratic lawmaker who seems to be defecting from the rest of the party. She's done this before, but in a better situation. So, Tulsi Gabbard has decided to avoid the impeachment vote today. She is not present while Democratic and Republican lawmakers are debating and voting on articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. Now, she has spoken to ABC News and she wants to go in a different direction. Here's what she said. I'm taking this time for myself to be able to review everything that's happened, all the information that's been put forward, and just all the factors that go into really trying to figure out what is the best action to take for our country and for democracy. It's not a simple or easy decision to make. She also said,
wrong. It's the easiest decision in the world.
Well, I
what
agree
the
with
hell
you.
are you doing? Okay, anyway.
Let me give you more. She also said, I think it's really important that every member of Congress cast their vote based on what's in the best interest of the country rather than based on political implications.
So Tulsi, you really think Donald Trump maybe has the best interest of the country and that maybe in that call he didn't ask for a political favor to investigate his political rival? You really think that? You can't possibly think that. So what the hell's wrong with Tulsi Gabbard? So all the people pretending that Tulsi Gabbard's a progressive, I guess we're done with that, right? So look, I have not been this tough on Representative Gabbard up until now. Why? Because in Congress, she generally 90% of the time votes with progressives, oftentimes very progressive, and is wonderfully against war, okay? Not all war, but wars of aggression and the ones that she's opposed to, I'm opposed to, okay? But now, when you come out and you're like, well, I don't know, maybe Donald Trump didn't do it. What the hell is that? No, that means
I'll tell you why
you have some other motive, but it isn't. You're playing some sort of political game that is not logical and it is not fact-based. And I'm not sure I care about your intentions, but no honest person that's a Democrat running against Donald Trump thinks he didn't do it.
So I have a theory behind why she's doing this, and it's really based on polling numbers. So we'll get to that in just a second, but I think it's important to mention that rather than vote in favor of impeaching Donald Trump, she has decided to introduce a resolution to censure Trump instead.
Yeah, whoop-de-doo.
And so look, obviously I disagree with that. I think that there is an abundance of evidence to show that Donald Trump coerced a foreign government to meddle in our elections and announce an investigation into Joe Biden. That's just plain and simple. I mean, how many ambassadors and governmental officials do you need to testify against him? Has she been paying attention? I don't know. Maybe she has. But here's what I think is.
Okay, hold on. Before you get to your guess as to why. Look, there's 5 clear crimes. I've said it 1,000 times. 2 campaign finance violations, 2 obstruction charges, and then you've got the extortion, where I'm going to hold up your funds unless you help my political campaign. So this is not a thing you censure someone over, okay? It's what do you? Oh, I would like to introduce a resolution beseeching the president to please stop committing half a dozen crimes. No, it's not beseeching, it's not censuring. You have to take action and impeach him so that you set a precedent that the president is not above the law. So I don't, look guys, and I'm not helping my cause by alienating some Democrats who love Tulsi Gabbard. But I'll tell you, if you're in that camp, I explain this one. Like what, really? Now, in order to explain this one, Tulsi Gabbard is gonna get you to defend Donald Trump. That's insanity.
So look, this is what my theory is. And this actually gave me a lot of clarity because it was frustrating to have so many examples of her doing things that go against what progressives fundamentally believe, including voting in favor of the vote to condemn BDS protesters, right? Like why would anyone in the progressive camp be in favor of that resolution to condemn protesters who just want to hold the Israeli government accountable? Okay. But here's the fact of the matter. Most of her supporters aren't progressive. Okay, so polling actually indicates that the supporters that she does have are mostly male and they're mostly conservative and voted for Donald Trump. So let's go to those figures. This is from 538. So her supporters are more likely to have backed President Trump in 2016, hold conservative views, or identify as Republican compared to voters backing the other candidates. An early November poll from the economist YouGov found that 24% of Democratic primary voters who voted for Trump in 2016 backed Gabbard. By comparison, 12% of these voters backed Senator Elizabeth Warren, 11% backed Biden, and 10% backed Mayor Pete Buttigieg. I think that's relevant. I think that might be an influencing factor.
So I know there are real progressives who support Tulsi Gabbard, but now are you really? I mean, are you going to still be a progressive and now turn around and defend Donald Trump and say, oh no, we should only do a slap on the wrist? But we got to wait till he commits 6, 7, 8 crimes before we do anything more than a censure. Bizarre, absolutely bizarre. And apparently, yes, a lot of her voters are inclined towards the Republicans. Is that a really smart strategy in a Democratic primary? So, gee, I wonder why you're polling at 1% or lower when you're trying to win over Republican voters in a Democratic primary where Republican voters cannot vote.
I don't really think she's seriously running anymore. She claimed that she wants to sit out this next debate.
No, I know. Like now, you had a theory. Now I have a theory. Look, first of all, she was taking out a bunch of Democrats, which I liked. She was right about those. See, I'm principled. When she's right, I give her credit. I give her a lot of credit. Okay, when she's wrong, I call her out for being wrong. I do that with every candidate. So, sure, aggressive questioning of Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg were correct in the debates, okay? But it looked like I thought she was angling to maybe be Biden's VP. Hey, a person of color, a woman, veteran, et cetera, et cetera. Now she's defending Trump. I think she gets it. No, the establishment hates her for different reasons than we have an issue with her. She's not gonna get Biden's VP pick. I think she's now moved to a third rail, if you will, a third track where she's like, no, if Trump wins the election, I go serve in his cabinet. You remember, she's not running for office anymore. So why is she in a Democratic primary trying to help Donald Trump? If you did any kind of logical politics, that makes no sense at all, except I'm now on a prominent stage. And so I set up a situation where I go, I'm so disgruntled with the Democratic Party. And I thought they were so unfair to Donald Trump. Remember, she met with Donald Trump when he won the first time and was being considered for a cabinet position by Trump and Bannon. That was one of the first questions I asked her in an interview that we did. And people were like, oh, that's so unfair to ask her about Steve Bannon liking her. Well, apparently it's relevant because here we are now, her seemingly being one of the very few Democrats left in the country in some ways defending Donald Trump.
Bernie 2020. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
We're gonna do a little thing we like to call Weekly World News. Weekly World News. I cull stories from around the globe, stories that aren't covered on the main show or aren't covered enough, and I turn it into a 5-question quiz for Dave and Steve. All right, do we have our answers? A from Dave and C from Steve. And the correct answer is B, an oil tanker that sank off the coast of China. Okay, we have one answer of B and one answer of C. What is the correct answer? It is, of course, A, an airplane wing walking stunt gone wrong. Okay, we have an answer of A from Dave and C from Steve. The correct answer is B. We have an answer of B and C. What is the correct answer? In true Weekly World News tradition, it's A.
Come on.
Taking the bear out for ice cream.
That can't possibly be true. We're terrible today. Just terrible.
I often think about the terror that my grandmother was under until she was 8 or 9 years old, and how horrific that experience must have been in this state of discomfort for the benefit of other people.
People will still treat you like you're the problem. That's what we mean when we say living well black. We're just trying to live our best life. We're trying to be the best that we can be, and we're frustrated and tired of people treating us like we're criminals.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes. All right, back in the Young Turks. New party Who Dis writes in, I'm sick of Tulsi. She needs to go away. Instead of backing impeachment, she wants to provide a nice alternative. No, ma'am. Impeachment and removal is the only way forward. Laughing Buddha Astronaut writes in the member section, I was for Tulsi until a couple of minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
Wow, and you're right. I mean, look at what my reaction as opposed to what I've been saying in the past. She said that the Democrats are doing hyper partisanship. Come on. Okay. Coleman says Tulsi was just on Joe Rogan with a right-wing talker.
Yeah.
Tulsi did not correct the conservative talker as he spouted countless lies. No way she's a progressive. The mathematician says, gee, is anyone really shocked that a lying, closet conservative, pro-torture, anti-immigration, so-called progressive Tulsi Gabbard took a marshmallow stance on Orange Mussolini, a guy who's in bed with Modi in India, someone whose people are backing her 100%. By people, I think he means donors. And in Need2S, I don't know if they're challenging us or not, but asked the question, was there a TYT campaign to impeach Bush? Yes, I thought Bush should have been impeached. He did warrantless wiretapping, which was a massive crime. Torture is a crime in America, not just international law, in US law. You just cannot have people, the president breaking the law and not doing anything about it. But those are crimes that the establishment were comfortable with. And that's what's really sickening.
Yeah, definitely.
And last one is William Emerson from YouTube Super Chat. He's back, and he says, Tulsi calling for censure is like cops telling crooks to stop robbing the bank now before I have to arrest you. Hashtag ain't nothing gonna happen. Okay. All right.
Just a quick announcement. Tomorrow on Thursday, there will be a Democratic debate in Los Angeles. And TYT, as always, will provide special debate coverage. We will have the large portion of our special coverage open for the public, and the last 30 minutes will only be available to our members. So you should join by going to tyt.com/join. But again, we will start our coverage at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you check it out. Ida Rodriguez, Cenk Uygur, John Idarola will all be on the panel together, and it'll be great.
And by the way, David Dayen is doing the spin room for us. So David's been on the show a lot. Incredible progressive journalist. So make sure you check that out as part of our coverage. All right, what's next?
All right. After mounting pressure to release information and disclose who Pete Buttigieg's bundlers are, turns out that he did disclose bundlers, except he omitted about 20 of them. And it's a little bit of a problem. Politico found this discrepancy and reported on it extensively. Now, he's raised $51 million in his bid for president as of September 30th. Those are the most updated figures available. But here's what's going on according to Politico's reporting. Buttigieg's presidential campaign omitted more than 20 high-level fundraisers from a list of top bundlers it disclosed last week. The public list of bundlers, featuring more than 100 people who have raised at least $25,000 for Buttigieg, was meant to bring a close to more than a week of feuding between Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren over campaign transparency. Now, who were these bundlers? Well, the omitted bundlers include uber wealthy supporters such as Boston power broker Jack Connors Jr., who declared he was all in for Pete Buttigieg in a June fundraiser invite, and Hollywood producer Jordan Horowitz, whose film included La La Land.
So look, I got no beef with any particular donor. Yes, there's some guys, hedge fund, private equity, fine. To me, that's not the issue. The issue is, why is he omitting donors from his list? And it's a typical politician move to only do it when you get caught. And so he got caught, then he's like, oh, yeah, I meant I got more donors. And so executive director of Revolving Door Project, Jeff Hauser, who was a critic of Buttigieg, says, producing data 4 days after they were asked for it with obvious omissions, that's sketchy. And so it definitely is sketchy, but I gotta say Joe Biden is sketchier. So Joe Biden will not release the names of his bundlers. So he keeps them completely secret and in the dark. The Koch brothers must be really proud of Joe Biden, the way that he's using the dark money in this case. Now, dark money sometimes has a connotation that's a little different, but he is keeping people in the dark about his bundlers. So Buttigieg does not have a good record, but Biden's record is clearly worse. Let's be fair about that. Now, of course, Sanders and Warren have also released the names of their bundlers. They don't exist. So they don't have bundlers, so that one was easy.
So look, in this case, this was well played by Warren, right? The mounting pressure on Pete Buttigieg to disclose bundlers and his top donors actually worked, and then he his campaign thought that people wouldn't notice that there was this discrepancy, but of course they're gonna notice. Look, money in politics is a huge issue right now. People are hyper aware of what's going on. They wanna know all the details, they want transparency. What I find fascinating about Joe Biden, and I think it's because we're still kind of early on in the election, is that he's so defiant. He's like, no, I'm not gonna be transparent about anything, F off, right? He didn't actually say that, but that's the feel that you get from him. And it hasn't hurt him yet.
And the action.
And the action, yeah.
Yeah, so Buttigieg told his donors recently, people have gotten a little too cynical about politics. Maybe because some folks take giant money from corporate PACs, bundlers, lobbyists, and then keep it hidden as long as they can, and then serve their interest. Gee, I wonder why people would get cynical, right?
Yeah. Look, people have gotten cynical about politics because while we have two parties that seem very different, when push comes to shove on the issues that matter the most, they vote together. They vote together when it comes to tax cuts for the rich. They vote together when it comes to engaging in war abroad or intervening in wars abroad. They vote together when it comes to increasing an already bloated military budget. Yeah, people are cynical, they're upset, and they know that the reason why there are these huge similarities between the two parties is because of money in politics.
100%. Now, speaking of which, I gotta give you at least two more, no, I'll give you three more facts here. So to be fair to Pete Buttigieg, some corporate Democrats will literally, a lot of them will literally raise only 1% of their money from people giving under $200. That's not the case for Buttigieg. 47% of his money comes from, or at least they're not 47% of the money, but 47% of the contributions, individual contributions, come from donors who gave less than $200. For a corporate Democrat, that's not bad. So he has some mix of small donors and large donors. But on the other hand, think about it. 53% of his donors, and he's got a ton of donors, he raised $51 million. 53% of his donors have given over $200. That is a ton of wealthy folks that are lining up behind Buttigieg. And by the way, Hollywood and Silicon Valley, some of the top executives, also behind Buttigieg. So the money is going straight to Buttigieg. And by the way, you might think that's fine. Hey, you need that money to defeat Trump. That's your call to make. I've got issues with taking that kind of money and serving those folks. But one of his fundraisers was held in a wine cave.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders' team put out a statement saying, needless to say, we will never have a fundraiser at a wine cave.
Look, I love Bernie, and that's the right response, and that's what I'll always appreciate about him. With that being said, God, I want to be in a wine cave. Like, I just want to live in a wine cave. I don't want to fundraise in a wine cave. I just want to live in it, and I want to stay there for the rest of my life.
Okay, so rosé all day, maybe.
Yes, Jake, yes.
Right. Okay, last one. So we said the internet would catch Pete Buttigieg, and it looks like he's in the middle of getting caught. Credit to Elizabeth Warren for pointing it out and running an aggressive campaign. That's totally fair. Now people wherever he goes have started chanting Wall Street Pete, Wall Street Pete, okay? So that leads me to the last fact. People who've raised at least $25,000 for Buttigieg get a title, okay? You wanna know what the title is? They're in the, quote, investors circle. But they should not have named it that. It is too on the nose. That's exactly right. These are the people who are investing in Pete Buttigieg and hope to get a return on that investment. So buyer beware, okay, and voter beware. If you're comfortable with that, and I know that there are some people who are very comfortable with that. If you're wealthier, Buttigieg is awesome for you. And you're part of the intellectual elite, you work at the New York Times, you probably love Pete Buttigieg, right? You don't want things to fundamentally change, probably for Buttigieg. Or you just want someone safe and you think, hey, you gotta raise money to compete with Trump. I get it. But if you think he's only serving you, the investor circle disagrees.
Exactly. All right, well, we have one other Pete Buttigieg story to do, so let's get to it. This is a TYT Investigate story by Jonathan Larson. So, Jonathan Larson at TYT Investigates has found some more shocking information in regard to Pete Buttigieg, his donors, and how his ties to certain people could be influencing his decision to refuse to release some police tapes where white police officers in South Bend are accused of saying racist things about the department's first African-American police chief. Now again, Buttigieg has refused to release the tapes. He could unilaterally make the decision to do so, but he has refused. So what's going on? Well, first, let me just back up a little bit. 2 months ago, Mayor Pete actually cut ties with a Chicago lawyer who blocked the release of videotapes showing police shooting 17-year-old Laquan McDonald. Now that was a huge scandal, huge controversy, so you could understand why Buttigieg would cut ties with that lawyer. But now he's mixed up with a different lawyer who could be influencing his decision to block the release of the police tapes. So according to the reporting by Jonathan Larson, unlike the Chicago tapes, these involve Buttigieg himself, and the tape's contents could prove politically damaging to him. For years, speculation about the tapes has focused on whether white police used racist rhetoric. But TYT revealed in September that police allegedly also discussed using Buttigieg's donors to get him to oust Daryl Boykins, the city's first African-American police chief, okay? So the city is no longer in court blocking the tapes, but a lawyer whose firm has donated to Buttigieg still is. So that's the big issue here. The name of the lawyer is Dan Pfeiffer, and he actually represented the cops in the original case and is now representing a new set of cops who want the tapes to be kept secret, okay? So let me give you some more from the reporting. Buttigieg has refused to say whether he has or will release his campaign finance forms from his 2011 mayoral race. The county clerk destroyed its copies in accordance with state record retention laws. But a copy of one filing obtained by TYT shows Buttigieg got a donation from Pfeiffer's firm and from partner Richard Morgan individually before he won the mayoral primary. Morgan individually also gave $1,000 to Buttigieg in 2011. Even in 2015, when Buttigieg had no real competition for his re-election, the Morgans gave him another $1,000. Now, Pfeiffer said this is not something that the firm is doing, right? The firm isn't donating. We're donating to Buttigieg individually, as if that makes anything any better. Again, Pfeiffer is the one who's trying to block the release of the police tapes. But here's what Pfeiffer told TYT, and I know you'll love this, Cenk. He said, quote, "You have to contribute to certain people in the community if you want to be a productive member of the community from a business standpoint."
That's exactly the problem. Oh my God, he just flat out admitted it. Look, and he said we give to all the Democrats because Democrats win in that town. Because if you want to do business, you gotta. He's not saying bribe, he's not saying that word. And nobody says it outside of this show. But when you give from a business standpoint to influence a politician, what would you call that? Now in this country, it's legal. That's why I call it legalized bribes. And so he just flat out says it. Now look, let's look at a couple of hypocrisies here. So in Laquan McDonald, because it's a national case and the national media is asking about it, Buttigieg says, oh my God, the cops gotta release the tapes. In South Bend, the cops have tapes that they recorded that they've been fighting for years to keep secret. And he goes, no, they don't have to release those. Oh, why don't they have to release those? Well, because the national media didn't ask me about it. Only TYT asked me about it. Only the African-American community in South Bend asked me about it. I don't need to listen to either one of those people. What do I care about them? If the New York Times asked me, which they of course never would because they're on my side, then I might have to answer. But right now I don't have to answer at all. So I'm gonna keep the tapes of potentially racist cops in South Bend, where I was mayor, totally secret, even though I know what's on the tapes. But in Chicago, where it doesn't matter to me at all, sure, oh yeah, release the tape, sure, and I'll return the donor money. Are you gonna return the donor money of the lawyers fighting to keep those tapes secret in South Bend? No, not gonna return the money, because why? The mainstream media loves me and didn't ask me. Actual real news people at TYT Investigates asked me, because they're independent journalists and their job is not to kiss my ass for the entirety of the campaign. So if you're a real news person, of course I'm not gonna answer you. Mainstream media, come in here and defend me, okay? My God, is anyone in the national media going to ask him about these tapes where Our investigative reporting team, that is an objective unit of TYT, has found out that on the tapes, the cops say white people are going to be back in charge. We're going to have Buttigieg's donors fire the black police chief. And then Buttigieg comes in, and then they say on the tapes, based on what witnesses that have seen it or heard it, yes, the donors talked to him. He's gonna get rid of Boykins, the black police chief. And then he gets rid of him. He did it. So he tries to fire him, then he demotes him. He got rid of Boykins, just like they say in the calls. Do you know that his lawyers have the tapes? Or I should say, they know what's in the tapes. So he says, oh, I don't know what's in the tapes. Golly gee, well, I don't know. His lawyers know. Buttigieg's lawyers know.
And Buttigieg
he
is still the mayor
knows.
of the
That's
town.
my look. When I say he knows, that's not TYT investigates. That's my logical conclusion and opinion. Okay, TYT investigates has the facts. So people should look into the facts, but of course they refuse to because it's a giant Buttigieg protection racket. And then I want to tell you one other thing about that. Do you know that what Pfeiffer and the other folks that are trying to protect the police, the racist cops in South Bend are doing? Racist cops is my opinion because they say they wanted white people back in charge. And they also spoke Ebonics. By the way, as everybody's denying it, like, oh, no, Captain Dave Wells, one of the officers, went on a radio show and said, quote, that TYT story says I was talking in Ebonics or some whatever that means. Maybe, I don't know, I don't remember. In other words, he did, okay? It's in the tapes. Buttigieg won't release them because it could damage his reputation. Meanwhile, the African American community in South Bend's like, what's in the goddamn tapes? These are the cops that are taking action, including taking a young African American's life recently, okay? So it happens over and over again. But what I wanted to get to was, on January 22nd, there's gonna be a hearing. This is in the middle of the campaign, so it's coming up, okay, in about a month, where Pfeiffer, the guy that we were quoting, and by the way, who's representing the cops for free, out of the goodness of his heart. I mean, they donated to Buttigieg. They want to protect Buttigieg. And look at this, they're a lawyer who's part of the people donating to Buttigieg, just freely giving legal work to these cops. Keep the tapes in, keep the tapes in. When Jonathan Larson asked about it, he said, well, it is free, but it's not pro bono. Why isn't it pro bono? It's kind of part of the old case. Yeah, that's how a lot of lawyers do it. They're like, no, I'm not gonna charge you. That's part of the old case. I'll work for free for years. And why don't you want to call it pro bono? Because you got issues. Anyway, in the hearing, Pfeiffer's motion is to destroy the tapes. Now, the simplest question in the world. So mainstream media, I'm not asking you to challenge Buttigieg, God forbid, okay? Just ask the simplest question in the world. If there's nothing wrong in the tapes, why do they want them destroyed? If the tapes were, hey, maybe they made a perfect call. If they made a perfect call, then we should hear the tapes and we'll say, congratulations, South Bend cops. It turns out you weren't being racist to the African American community. It turns out the shootings were justified and all the things that were justified. And Pete Buttigieg, congratulations for putting all the white people back in charge among the cops. And if it doesn't say that, you know what? You'll get to embarrass TYT. Oh, TYT, you got the tapes wrong. It turns out they didn't say the white people are gonna be back in charge. They didn't speak Ebonics. Here's the tapes, we didn't destroy them. Prove us wrong, you can. And the entire media lets Buttigieg hide.
100%.
This is amazing reporting by Jonathan Larson. So he's our managing editor. The TYT Investigates is objective. They don't do opinion, we do opinion, okay? Look at the facts, but the media doesn't wanna do that. Why? Infinitely biased, unbelievably biased. They will look at every single little thing that any other candidate has done. But when it comes to Buttigieg, no, that's beloved Wall Street Pete. I don't want to know the facts. Oh, there's unbelievably damning tapes in South Bend. The only thing Pete Buttigieg has ever done was be mayor of South Bend. He's now leading in Iowa. They said, no. Well, if he's leading, then the press will get tough on him. He wasn't important before. He took the lead in Iowa and New Hampshire. And they're like, well, I mean tapes. Where it's wildly racist cops potentially, and they say about it's Buttigieg's donors that are making Buttigieg protect those cops. No, I wouldn't want to do news. So it's the Buttigieg protection racket. Mainstream media, you're an absolute embarrassment.
Yeah, let's go to break because you have me worked up and I want to say things that I'm not allowed to say while you're sitting next to me. So let's do that. Let's go to break. And when we come back, we'll talk about some new endorsements that Warren has gotten. And they are not necessarily from people on the left that we agree with. So we'll be right back. Trump has already launched Trump TV. In fact, they recently did a weather report. So why don't we go to the Trump Weather Channel and see what they have to say about this story.
This is Brett Ehrlich reporting live on Hurricane Dorian as the storm bears down here in Mobile, Alabama. And as you can see, the weather is actually pretty nice. We need to fix this shot. We need to make it seem like there's more of a hurricane. Okay, actually, let's go to some video of a hurricane. Oh God, that's what a hurricane would look like if one was here. And that's scary, isn't it? And actually, if you listen really close, you can hear the wind. Real natural debris. And I'm not even sure how the people here in Mobile will cope with the cleanup afterwards. So we're just really waiting we gotta get out of the shot. We gotta get out of the shot with bated breath to see what will happen. And ow, okay, all right, okay. That's back to you guys, back to you in the studio. All right. Mr. President, I can't fake rain. What do you mean use a Sharpie? As you can see, the rain is coming down in buckets. The rain's coming down all over the place, and there is no quarter. There is no quarter, no place to hide. I quit. I just quit.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Damage Report, another week of the news. I am John Idarola, and we've got a doozy of a show for you. My God, is DC up its own ass today. We have put someone into power in our country who is so crazy, they have finally out-crazied North Korea.
The US is the only country in the world that isn't part of the Paris Climate Accord.
Yesterday, Donald Trump did exactly what he told us. He pulled the US out of the Iran nuclear accords.
People call the police on black people. People are fearful of black humans. There is no more to the story than racism.
I was gonna say we've been dealing with the issue of lead poisoning in this country, but that would imply that we're really doing something. We have an issue with lead poisoning and it continues. So 60 people are now dead. Some of them grandmothers, many of them children. The silence of politicians on both sides of the aisle. Just about only Bernie Sanders, maybe Tulsi Gabbard, and a few others have actually been critical of what happened there. And the rest are cowards hiding behind silence, refusing to admit what happened yesterday.
We have to be able to accept that we do things wrong in this country. You can fix and change things, make things even.
What's great about our country, and this is a great example of it, is everybody's pissed off. This is The Damage Report, and it's all about the threats facing us each day. When something's relevant, and it's hot, and it's in the news, you're not supposed to talk about it. Can we start talking about it now? Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back at the Young Turks. I like the optimism in our member section. A bucket of squirrels is ammo against logic, writes in. If you feel pessimistic about the current events, no matter what happens, we will still wake up in the morning, continue living your ideals, and others will follow. Dreams don't die unless you bury them. Anna and I were just talking about this during the break, and Edwin too. Like, unfortunately, a lot of times the good guys get like recognized only after the time has already passed. Like, oh yeah, and part of and I'm actually going to be optimistic within that pessimism is that because ripple effects. You plant a seed and then it grows into a tree, but the problem is it grows into a tree way past you, right after you, and then people look back and go, oh, maybe they were like good guys. So like maybe the people not taking the money and trying to fight for the right things were the good guys, but in the present, never. And I mean, look, it's happening to Kaepernick right now. Now we look back at the 1968 Olympics and we go, what courage? We look back at Muhammad Ali, we say, what courage? We look at Kaepernick and you spit at him. What?
I know.
It's unbelievable. As Martin Luther King said, I think it comes from the Bible, but wrong forever on the throne, truth forever on the scaffold, but that scaffold sways the future.
God, he was so, I mean.
No one's ever going to match Martin Luther King.
How do people, anyway, I don't want to get pessimistic, so let's move on. Like I'm always amazed at like the optimism in speeches that were given by Martin Luther King and even by like Lula da Silva from Brazil, the former leader of Brazil who was a political prisoner. When he was still imprisoned, he said something along the lines of, you can do whatever you want with me, but you can't kill an idea, right? And that's such a powerful thing to say while you're being put in one of the worst situations, like while you're imprisoned because your political opponent is terrible and can't win based on his ideas.
No, there are giants that walk among us, and my biggest regret is that I never got to interview Nelson Mandela while he was alive. So anyway, look, one more serious comment and then three funny ones. Wyman says, the more I hear about the other candidates, the more I'm sure I'm going to vote for Bernie. Hashtag Bernie 2020. So I think a lot of people are coming to that conclusion as we get closer to the election. Rebel Fish in the member section says, every time I hear bundlers, I hear bunglers. Me too! I was almost gonna make a joke about that. He says, wait, that is the correct term for Democrats in Congress.
Yep.
That's true as well. And I'm gonna go to YouTube super chat. Asa Starley Adams says, now that I know how little the law matters, I don't want to hear crap from any cop judge the next time I feel like speeding or stealing that Santa yard decor down the street.
Damn bad, naughty.
Yeah, you're gonna be on the naughty list, man. I don't think Santa's gonna come. Well, if you're stealing Santa, he's already there. But anyway, Amir Hakim writes in, my family makes wine. Wine caves are the best.
Yeah.
Good for you, Amir. And thanks for using YouTube Super Chat. Okay, what's next?
All right. Hundreds of former Obama administration officials have endorsed Elizabeth Warren. And so this proves a theory that I had earlier in the week right, and I'm going to replay that theory for you in just a moment. But before I do, let me give you the details on who exactly is endorsing her. According to The Hill, the endorsements came after a campaign by Sarah El-Almin and John Carson, who respectively served as national director of former President Obama's 2012 re-election campaign and national field director for his 2008 campaign prior to joining the administration. Both later worked on Organizing for America, the Obama Grassroots Organizing Network. Now, Sarah El-Almin told CNN, quote, we are a group that really uniquely knows that electability is self-determining and that oftentimes it's the people with the boldest vision and the most unlikely candidacies early on who can really shift the field. Senator Warren really has the zest. I love when people use the word zest. I'm not being sarcastic there. And the grit and the gumption and the audacity that we loved that President Obama really embodied. So look, Cenk, before you share your commentary, I just want to go back long ago to yesterday when we were talking about a speech that Obama gave recently. And in that speech, he was saying all these like bad things about old white men and all these wonderful things about women. And so we were just speculating that it seems like he's endorsing Elizabeth Warren without really saying it. And then I started thinking about her policy proposals and how she kind of pivoted on Medicare for All. She's not really as fierce on Medicare for All as she used to be. And so here's what my theory was, and I just want to show you so I can say that I was right.
And then which of the candidates are women? Well, of the leading four, It's Elizabeth Warren. So is he backing Warren? Does he think Biden and Buttigieg and Bernie should get out of the race and Warren should win?
Do you think that's part of the reason why Warren has been advised to kind of move away from some of the progressive policy proposals, like Medicare for all?
I have no idea. I mean, that's total speculation.
Yeah, no, I know, of course, but I just think it's interesting. It's interesting that in this event he felt the need to, trash old people and then, say nice things about women. Now, it really depends on who the audience is. Maybe he was pandering to the audience. I have no idea. All I know is
maybe he wants Tulsi.
Maybe he's a huge fan of Tulsi Gabbard. Who knows? Not a fan of Tulsi Gabbard.
No. Credit where credit is due. I said right in the beginning he's probably backing Warren. You saw it in the clip. What are you talking about?
I know, but my theory was a little more like meaty than that, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I want to give Anna credit. So when I read this story from today, I was like, oh, Anna might have been right. Maybe that's why Warren is headed more in a moderate direction.
Yes.
And so, look, knowing what I know. Getting endorsements is a process and it takes a while and you have to court people, etc. normally, okay? So that's 200 Obama people that they had to court. What was that courting process? Okay, and what direction did it make them go in? So now, look, there's people who worked for Obama who are wonderful people and really smart and some who are very progressive. But a lot of the people who worked for Obama are not Obama. And Obama was a unique talent in terms of politics, but everybody, victory has 1,000 fathers, right? So anybody who ever worked for Obama is like, I'm no Obama person. I worked on Obama campaign, Obama team, Obama administration, right? So some of those folks, some of the senior level folks, went to Beto O'Rourke's campaign and absolutely broke it in half, destroyed it, pulverized it. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And they're like, oh, Beto O'Rourke, you got to get rid of your grassroots volunteers. Nobody wants volunteers. No, you do. You run a regular campaign where you tell people corporations are good and whatever. To be fair to Beto, he didn't say corporations are good. But they ran a very standard establishment campaign and they ruined Beto. Beto as a Senate candidate was a much more interesting candidate,
yes,
much more grassroots. The Obama people, and they're not a monolith, they're different Obama people, right? But a lot of the Obama team is stuck in the old ways, the establishment ways, and are not progressive. So now if they've gone over to Warren, no wonder they're destroying her campaign.
What's really interesting though, well, I love that you just said that because once she pivoted away from bold progressivism, especially when it comes to Medicare for all, she started experiencing that little dippy dip, right, in the polls. And so again, it's my theory, it's our theory that moving away from progressivism actually hurt her. But she's made a calculation here, and the calculation is, well, Obama still has a high approval rating, and getting the endorsements of all these former Obama administration officials is gonna help me. So that remains to be seen. We'll see how it plays out.
No, it's not. I can tell you right now,
Yeah.
my political analysis, and I haven't been too wrong on this. You can hate me all you want, but that's a fact. Is that, and I said it ahead of time. I've said it ahead of time every time during this campaign. I told you when Yang was gonna go up. I told you when Warren was gonna go up. I told you when Warren was gonna go down. I told you when Sanders was gonna go up. All of it has happened. You saw it with your own eyes. And so when Warren started becoming less progressive, I told you she was gonna go down, and she did go down. She's gonna keep going in this direction. She's gonna go continue to go further and further down. They're gonna destroy her campaign just like they did Beto's. Okay, so now again, it's different people, but it's the same groupthink. And now, look, along those lines, remember, I'm the guy that everybody charged with being biased in favor of Elizabeth Warren, and there is some truth to that. I mean, I saw a picture that we were showing in the hoodie, and I was like, she looks good in that hoodie. That's such a good hoodie. That's how biased I am in favor of Elizabeth Warren. Why? She earned it. She kicks bank. See, she does look good.
She did earn it. She does look good in that hoodie.
Okay, looks so comfortable. That's the right hoodie to wear. Anyway, So she kicked bankers' ass for a living. She set up the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. She got you $12 billion back. I endorsed Bernie Sanders because he was more solidly progressive and didn't waffle. It turns out, unfortunately, I was right about that. Fortunately for Bernie Sanders, unfortunately for a wonderful progressive like Elizabeth Warren, she's taking the wrong counsel.
Yes.
And so last thing, the reason I brought up all that thing about being right is that the mainstream media is gaslighting everyone again for the millionth time. They're saying the reason her polling numbers are going down is because she went too progressive. It's demonstrably false. It's not fact-based, it's alternative facts. She clearly went less progressive. That's just a fact. And they're like, no. How did she go more progressive? She's backing away from Medicare for all. How could you possibly say backing away from Medicare for all is more progressive? It clearly is not. They just repeat things that aren't true because it doesn't fit their narrative. They're unbelievable. So I say this as an ally of Elizabeth Warren, as someone who respects her tremendously. Get rid of these folks. I know it's too late. You're not gonna get rid of 200 endorsements from the Obama team. I know you've decided to go in that direction. And I guess if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, you should be happy because she's gonna lose more support. Bernie's likely to gain more support. But I just feel bad for her because I think that she's a wonderful progressive, and she got led down the wrong road here, and it's not going to lead her to winning. It's going to lead her to getting eliminated.
She'd be a good Treasury Secretary in Bernie's administration.
She'd be amazing at 1,000 positions, all top level. But she's got to get away from these establishment folks that don't know anything about politics.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take our final break of the hour, and then when we come back, one of my favorite stories of the day, we're gonna have some fun. We're going to mock Representative King, a self-declared nationalist, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful story. Don't miss it. Trump has already launched Trump TV. In fact, they recently did a weather report. So why don't we go to the Trump Weather Channel and see what they have to say about this story.
Brett Ehrlich reporting live on Hurricane Dorian as the storm bears down here in Mobile, Alabama. And as you can see, the weather is actually pretty nice. We need to fix this shot. We need to make it seem like there's more of a hurricane. Okay, actually, let's go to some video of a hurricane. Oh God, that's what a hurricane would look like if one was here. And that's scary, isn't it? And actually, if you listen really close, you can hear the wind, real natural debris. And I'm not even sure how the people here in Mobile will cope with the cleanup afterwards. So we're just really waiting we gotta get out of the shot. We gotta get out of the shot with bated breath to see what will happen. And okay, all right, okay, that's back to you guys, back to you in the studio. All right. Mr. President, I can't fake rain. What do you mean use a Sharpie? As you can see, the rain is coming down in buckets. The rain's coming down all over the place, and there is no quarter. There is no quarter, no place to hide. I quit. I just quit.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Damage Report, another week of the news. I am John Idarola, and we've got a doozy of a show for you. My God, is DC up its own ass today. We have put someone into power in our country who is so crazy, they have finally out-crazied North Korea.
The US is the only country in the world that isn't part of the Paris Climate Accord.
Yesterday, Donald Trump did exactly what he told us. He pulled the US out of the Iran nuclear accords.
People call the police on black people. People are fearful of black humans. There is no more to the story than racism.
I was gonna say we've been dealing with the issue of lead poisoning in this country, but that would imply that we're really doing something. We have an issue with lead poisoning and it continues. So 60 people are now dead. Some of them grandmothers, many of them children. The silence of politicians on both sides of the aisle. Just about only Bernie Sanders, maybe Tulsi Gabbard, and a few others have actually been critical of what happened there. And the rest are cowards hiding behind silence, refusing to admit what happened yesterday.
We have to be able to accept that we do things wrong in this country. You can fix and change things, make things even.
What's great about our country, and this is a great example of it, is everybody's pissed off. This is the Damage Report, and it's all about the threats facing us each day. When something's relevant, and it's hot, and it's in the news, you're not supposed to talk about it. Can we start talking about it now? Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back on the Young Turks. TCJ says in the member section, every time Cenk says the word Bungles, I think of my favorite NFL team, the Cincinnati Bengals, also known as the Cincinnati Bungles, LOL. I think the same thing, so does Skip, because we're both Steelers fans. So that's why I read it, because every time I say Bungle, I think Cincinnati Bungles. Now, if you're a member, you would know where this story came from. It's a friend of mine who was called a serial bungler by a judge. So become a member, go find that post game and you'll know the story. TYT.com/join to become a member. By the way, sign up for the affiliate program. You can get paid to sign up other people as members, TYT.com/win-win. And in today's post game for the members, speaking of bunglers, we have a great fail from a Republican during the impeachment proceedings. Okay, you're gonna love that. All right, I got a couple of last ones here. I'm the Derpy Dragon writes it on Twitter, called it Obama knows she's like him, change on the outside, continuity on the inside. I really think that's unfair, but it would be really interesting if Obama endorsed Warren. That would be shocking. Yeah, that would be amazing and a hell of a twist in this race. Truth Decay says on YouTube Super Chat, know who wouldn't change their policy and message to win an endorsement? Bernie Sanders is who, okay. And then last one is challenging us on YouTube Super Chat. Garnett ZX writes in, hello Cenk, just out of curiosity, if Trump by some miracle gets impeached, what's gonna happen to you guys? Most of your material comes from Trimpy Tramp. If he is gone, what will you report on?
There's a lot of news out there. Actually, I think it would, in a lot of ways, help the show. Because you gotta cover, like he's the president of the United States, you gotta cover Trump stories, right? But there's a ton of stories that I would love to do and amplify on this show, and we run out of time. And so we're gonna be fine, trust me.
Yeah, besides which, okay, so by the way, it's not by some miracle. He's about to get impeached within the hour. And if it happens during the post game, we'll let you know about it in the post game. You mean convicted. If
and
Trump
removed.
And removed, yes. That would be a slight miracle. If that does happen, then yes, I would be elated. It would be one of the happier days of my life. We do a celebration and then cover the rest of the news. I always love when people, and people have been saying this for 18 years since we've been doing the show. Oh yeah, what happens after the election? Yeah, we run out of news. Yeah, the word new is in the word news. You never run out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, what's next?
All right, it's a very serious story that we have next, so let's get to it. A Twitter troll who goes by the handle MuellerDad69 fooled white nationalist representative Steve King so hard that he deserves an award. So what did he do exactly? Well, according to Business Insider, the account MuellerDad69 claimed to be owned by a Starbucks manager who proudly discriminated against social conservatives by banning his employees from saying Merry Christmas to customers.
I'm gonna interrupt for a second. I saw that headline online and I was like, no, it didn't. That didn't happen. But people were taking it seriously at the time. They didn't know it was a troll. I'm like, I don't know what the story is, and all I saw was the headline. But I pulled up Ben Mankiewicz. That didn't happen. And it turns out,
God, the media is so dumb. His handle is MuellerDad69, and you just like reprint it, right? But anyway, okay, let me give you
the
more.
media retweet just printing what anonymous trolls say. I've never seen that before.
Right, yeah. So the tweet was then reposted by Representative King on Facebook. So let me show you what the post looked like. Again, this is MuellerDad69. I'm the manager of a Starbucks in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have informed my employees that they will be fired on the spot if I hear them say Merry Christmas to any customers. I'm doing it because I personally dislike conservative Christians.
Come on, come on. I mean, aren't you at least a little skeptical that that might not be the case? You're like, no, I saw it on Twitter, so it must be true.
Must be true.
But by the way, almost all the mainstream media actually does think that.
Yeah, and it's really depressing. So Steve King sees that, and he posts it on his Facebook account, and then he captions it, wow.
Well, it's true, it is wow.
It's wow that he posted it, it's so pathetic. So now, unfortunately, a Starbucks spokesperson, an official Starbucks spokesperson, had to respond to this story and clarify that no such person exists, meaning that there's no such manager who has forced employees to avoid saying Merry Christmas. Reggie Borges says, our baristas are offered the autonomy to choose how to greet each person, which can be anything from the usual to Merry Christmas. No script is provided, right? Now the Twitter account has been suspended, and Representative King has kept that post up. Hasn't changed it in any way, but I'm happy that he kept it up because it allowed me to read through the comments of his supporters. And this was one that I particularly enjoyed. If I lived near there, I would go in every day just to say it and not buy a thing. Well, you showed them. Can you imagine someone being offended by that, by the way? Like some random person comes in, Merry Christmas, and then runs away. I am so offended. There's no war on Christmas, guys. There never has been, there never will be. It's this made up conservative story that gets recycled every year, and I can't believe the media falls for it.
You know, Trump now started saying that the liberals are doing a war on Thanksgiving.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, it's just good. It's endless. Now, this is not the first time that Steve King has fallen for getting trolled online. He's also been trolled by some professionals like our own Kenny Clips. Okay, Ken was just having fun. Ken Klippenstein is a wonderful senior investigative reporter, but just as a gag that he didn't think that Steve King would actually fall for, he asked him during 4th of July, as Ken was doing a war on 4th of July, obviously, sarcasm. Okay, he said, sir, can I get a retweet from my uncle, Colonel Nathan Jessup? He's in the Marines and spending the 4th overseas keeping our nation safe. And put a picture of Jack Nicholson from A Few Good Men. Steve King retweeted. Come on, man. There's just you know how they used to say about David Letterman, there's no off switch on genius? Yeah. With Steve King, there's no off switch on idiot.
Okay, but back to MuellerDad69 for a minute, okay? So he has done similar things in the past. The same account has previously claimed to discriminate against military service members and police officers who were customers at Starbucks. But this is exactly what trolling is, right? You say outlandish things in tweets or on social media in an effort to get people riled up, and it works.
Yeah, well, actually, most of trolling is hideous, okay, and meant to get people angry, and not in a joking way, but like, ha ha, I got you, I said something racist, and you were upset about it. Yeah, good reason I'm upset about it, right? But 20% of trolling is fun. Where you're making obvious jokes, and then people who have no sense of humor are like, well, I salute you, Colonel Jessup. You really do need a few good men. Somebody's gotta be on that wall, right? And so this is the funny version of trolling, and only Steve King falls for it. Actually, that's not true. A lot of the media fall for it.
Yep. All right, well, I want to end on a positive story because while there's terrible stuff going on in the world and especially in this country, there are some good lawmakers, some good politicians doing wonderful things. So, While Georgia and Wisconsin are currently purging voters from their rolls, it turns out that in Kentucky, they're going in a different direction, and it's thanks to new leadership, Democratic leadership to be specific. So according to a wonderful piece written in Slate, we'll link to it in the description box below if you're watching this on YouTube. Guy Hamilton Smith, who was a nonviolent offender who was convicted, he writes this piece and he talks about how 3 days after taking office, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear restored the right to vote to more than 140,000 people who had served their sentences for nonviolent offenses, right? And so he actually made the process very easy. In less than 5 minutes online, I was registered to vote. The ease of the process was surprising to me, as I had spent most of the last decade sending reams of paper to the governor's office to apply for a restoration of my voting rights. Untold voicemails left with the Department of Corrections to find out if I had been granted or denied, or even looked at. In the course of that decade, I never received an answer. Never a no, never a yes, simply silence. Beshear's executive order is unquestionably a step in the right direction. It operates automatically and is both prospective and retroactive. It also instructs the state to provide information to people affected and provides a mechanism to request verification from the Department of Corrections. This is great news. So look, we're losing battles in places like Georgia and Wisconsin, but this is what happens when you get politically active and you elect the right leaders. And in Kentucky, luckily they have the right governor in charge.
Yeah, Matt Bevin would have never done this, he's the radical right winger. And I love that he's allowing more people to vote, not less people to vote. And that's what democracy is about. But understand that a lot of times Republicans say, yeah, no, this is gonna help Democrats when you allow people who are in prison to vote. First of all, it's nonviolent offenses. Second of all, it's Kentucky. In Kentucky, a lot of the folks in jail are people who use drugs and who are largely white, largely poor, and largely Trump voters. So I don't know the breakdown exactly of the demographics of who's more likely to vote Democratic or Republican, but it is not a foregone conclusion at all, okay, that they would vote Democratic. There's an excellent chance, because they're in Kentucky, that they would vote for Trump, because most people voted for Trump in Kentucky. And a lot of the people in prison for those nonviolent offenses are there on drugs. And in Kentucky, it happens to be mainly white folks, but it's either way, it's a terrible injustice. That's why some Republicans are now turning around and working on criminal justice reform because of the opioid crisis. There's a lot of white Republican voters in prisons that don't belong there. Nobody belongs there on drug issues. Drugs is a health problem, it's not a prison problem. So here, it's something that doesn't necessarily help the Democratic Party, but it's the right thing to do no matter what. It might help the Democratic Party, I just don't know, and I don't think anyone really knows. But it's, yes, put more people in the voter rolls, empower democracy, give more people the right to vote, not less.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that this has positive ramifications in so many different ways. Not only does it strengthen our democratic process by giving more people the right to vote, but if you are concerned at all with recidivism, meaning people who get released from prison and then they end up back in prison because they commit the same crime again or a different crime, this is something that would help, I think, lessen that. Because people feel that they're productive members of society. Look, if you've committed a crime, especially a nonviolent drug offense or any nonviolent crime, you should be able to serve your time and then be able to go back out into society and create a great life for yourself. But we have a system in which continues to punish people for the rest of their lives. Job applications ask if you have a prior conviction, and a lot of places will refuse to hire you as a result of that. A lot of states do not allow convicted criminals to ever vote again. And so that's a huge problem, and I like the fact that, at least in Kentucky, they're going in a different direction. This is not a partisan thing. This is about actually wanting to do what's just, what's right, and to allow people to have better lives once they've served their time.
Voting matters. There are sometimes vast differences between the candidates, especially between Republicans and Democrats. Here, Kentucky voted a Democrat in, got immediate justice.
Yes.
Okay, can we squeeze in the fail? The Republican fail.
I don't know if we have the video ready. Do we have the Republican fail ready? Oh, we don't have it ready. Sorry, Cenk. We'll do it in the post-game show.
Okay.
That was fun. But I do want to, I know we don't have a lot of time left. I do want to just quickly talk about some predictions for the debate.
Oh, okay.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
So let me just bring us into that. So Democrats will be debating tomorrow in Los Angeles. And so I'm curious, Cenk, if you are thinking about this, are there any predictions you have about who's gonna really shine on the debate stage tomorrow?
So the thing I'm most curious about, is less of a prediction, is which way Warren's gonna go. Is she gonna start to sound more and more moderate and less progressive? All these Obama people have endorsed her. She's appears to be waffling on Medicare for all. Is she gonna lean into that strategy? Is she gonna go back to her progressive roots? Super interesting. Bernie Sanders on the campaign trail has been sounding more and more aggressive as we go along, and it's working for him. So is he gonna be more aggressive in the debate? It's just not in his nature to fight unless someone picks a fight with him. So in a sense, I hope they pick a fight with Bernie Sanders so we get a more combative guy who shows that he's a fighter for the people.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And Biden, look, he could, on any given debate, he could implode because there's something off with him sometimes during the debates. And people, it's uncomfortable to talk about, and they say you shouldn't talk about it. Sometimes he has trouble answering a question coherently. So one of those that's over the top could end his campaign, and it could happen in any debate. So you got to look out for that in every debate. And then Buttigieg is going to lean super hard into, I'm the moderate candidate. I'm the candidate that's not going to change anything. Don't worry, I'll speak in Norwegian and not do anything. And my guess is the media will come out of the debate going, Pete Buttigieg, yes, right? But is that going to start to have actual voters look at the debate and go, what did he just say?
Right, totally, yeah. Look, I don't know if these are not predictions, these are more wishes for tomorrow's debate. But on the debate stage, we're gonna have Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, Tom Steyer, Elizabeth Warren, and Andrew Yang. And my wish is that they don't focus so much on candidates who have no chance, but also have nothing interesting to say, like Amy Klobuchar. I would like to hear from people who have interesting things to say. Give Andrew Yang more of an opportunity to speak. I'm also hoping that Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, every other candidate actually goes after Pete Buttigieg because he is a target-rich environment and they were easy on him in the last debate.
Yes, Warren's been tougher on Buttigieg. Let's hope that happens in the debate. Let's have an actual debate of ideas. Okay, all right, interviews next on the postgame.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
The earth is burning.
Yeah.
Not only that, but that should shake you enough, period. But that so many people in power don't seem to care.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
We have to also remember that we like to put people in prison in this country.
There's only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign. Take control of your internet experience this holiday season with NordVPN. For a limited time, go to nordvpn.com/TYT or use the coupon TYT for a special holiday deal. Get a 3-year plan for 81% off, plus 2 amazing gifts, 4 extra months, and the new NordPass Password Manager app. That's nordvpn.com/TYT to take control of the internet again.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm at a Wolfpack gathering.
We're growing. I see faces that I recognize, but I also see a lot of faces that I don't recognize, and that's fantastic.
We are all taking time out of our lives to be here, and that's amazing. That means we truly believe in this. Make no mistake, everyone in this room is a leader in a Wolfpack.
Alaska, West Virginia, Montana, Georgia, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, everyone is here. All these folks paid with their own money and sometimes took vacation days to come here to strategize on how to get our democracy back and get money out of politics.
Or you get more political power just because you have more money. This is why it requires a constitutional amendment.
The process of winning in your state next year doesn't begin when session begins. It begins right now. To work to a goal, something this big that you're actually making a difference of, there's very few things in the world that really compare to that feeling.
Equal rights to fair representation, rights for human beings, anti-corruption laws, and free and fair elections. That's what we are fighting for.
What were the founding fathers? Revolutionaries. And they built revolution into the document.
So Article 5 is the way we have to go.
This is how you do it.
You're in this as a team, you're in this together. The fight will always continue.
That fight is not between the left and the right. That fight is between basically greed and humanity.
So I'm asking you to put differences aside, whether you're conservative or independent or progressive, to join forces to say no more corruption.
You get beyond the fear, you take that first step, and you'll change the world.
What I want to leave you with, of course, is hope. And I want to assure you that if we keep fighting together, we're going to win together. We're going to get that convention, we're going to get that amendment, and we're going to get our democracy back. Come join us, wolf-pack.com.
Hey there, thanks for watching The Young Turks. I'm Brooke Thomas, and tonight we are talking a couple of different things. We're gonna jump into a US congressional race, and we also are gonna talk about charts and how they lie to you. Let's get started on tonight's show. First up, we have Alberto Cairo, the professor of visual journalism at the University of Miami. Good evening, Professor, thanks for being here.
Hi, Brooke, thanks for having me.
I am so excited to talk to you because I hear you're excellent at breaking down what we're looking at when it comes to charts and graphs, and not only that, but how often they deceive us, right?
Yes, correct, yes. We sometimes, or quite often actually, we take the charts that we see in the media and in news media at face value, right? Mm-hmm. We see maps, we see graphs all the time, and we tend to believe that they embody science and objectivity. And what I try to do in the book is basically help people understand that charts are powerful and they're very important, but they need to be read carefully.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of those charts specifically, because I wonder if people first start hearing us talking, and then they're like charts, graphics, infographics. It gets confusing, but we can get very specific because you have a fascinating piece that's almost like a game that you click through in the New York Times about how often people misinterpret hurricane forecasts, right?
Yes,
it happens a lot.
And I live in Miami, so I'm really worried about people not being able to read those hurricane maps that the National Hurricane Center puts out so often, right? If you want to envision how those maps look like, they look like cones, right? There's a cone in the center of the map that is supposed to show you where a hurricane may go. And what we know through through research that has been conducted throughout the years is that many people, the first time that they see that map, they interpret that cone as if it were representing an area that is under threat. Meaning that if you're inside the cone, you're in danger. If you are outside of the cone, you're not in danger. And what I explain in the book, and also in that New York Times piece that I wrote a while ago, is that that's not what the cone is representing. The cone is basically representing a set of possible positions of the center of a hurricane in the following 5 days. And the center is the key word in there, because obviously a hurricane is an enormous object. So even if you are outside of the cone, the possible path of the storm, even if you are far from the outskirts, from the boundary of the cone, you may still be affected by the hurricane just because a hurricane is enormous, right? So yeah, there's a lot of science behind that, and it's a long explanation. But I think that is worth it, because once you are explained how to read that type of map, which is also a chart, you're able to read it better later on.
So why do you think it is though that people read them wrong so often, that so many people do this?
Well, it is because I'm not blaming readers. I'm not blaming people. It's like the problem is that we tend to approach maps, graphs, charts representing information as if they were just images, like illustrations, right? And they are not. They are arguments made visual, or visual arguments. Therefore, and they have a symbol system that represents information and a grammar that basically dictates how the information should be arranged on the display. And if you want to understand how a graphic works and what the graphic is actually showing, you need to know how that grammar works. That's why it's so important to explain, for example, how to read the National Hurricane Center cone. Because if you're not explained how to read it, then people will not be able to interpret it. And this is true of any kind of chart, by the way, even bar graphs. I mean, many people don't remember, but when we were in kindergarten or in elementary school, we were taught how to read a bar graph. Just because it is not obvious, it needs to be explained. But the teachers in the classroom were explaining to you the grammar that explains or that helps you interpret that graphic correctly.
So my first thought, especially when it comes to weather, right? When we're talking about hurricanes and these graphs that we see these often during hurricane season. And my first thought is that if they are misinterpreted so often, why aren't they drawn differently? You know?
Well, yes, I've looked into that with a group of colleagues from the University of Miami and even people from the National Hurricane Center. And it's actually harder than it seems. We have tested several alternatives to those maps, and all of them are open to misinterpretations. I have grown to believe that the key is not perhaps the charts that are used, but how those charts are presented. One of the reasons why hurricane maps are misunderstood so often is that, for instance, TV newscasters that present those charts and that explain where a hurricane may go sometimes misinterpret the cone map themselves, and therefore they end up explaining it wrongly to their readers. I remember being during Irma in Miami, and if you remember, Hurricane Irma was originally predicted to go over Miami, and everybody in Miami started closing up the shutters and installing plywood, etc., including a friend of mine who had recently moved to Miami. And suddenly the cone of uncertainty of Irma started moving towards the west coast of Florida. It ended up landing, in Naples and on the west coast of Florida. And my friend, so the cone was already moving towards the west, and my friend in Miami started relaxing a little bit, saying, well, perhaps we should not be that concerned. I said, no, that's absolutely not how to read the cone. So you need to be careful with that.
I want to talk about your book. Your book is titled How Charts Lie. What encouraged you to write this?
Well, the 2016 presidential election. That's the short answer. Although I have been collecting examples of charts that are either misleading on purpose or often misread, right? So that I try to combine and to alternate between these two types of charts that lie, quotation marks in there, in the book. But it was during the 2016 presidential election and the campaign towards the election that convinced me that there was a need to write this book. The example that opens up the book is the county level a map of the results of the 2016 presidential election, which is often used by President Trump and his supporters to say, we won on a landslide. They are using it these days, by the way. Probably you have seen it. They are displaying the county level map, tons of red and a little bit of blue, and they are overlaying impeach these or try to impeach these, meaning that take a look at the amount of red on this map and how little blue there is, meaning there's a lot of support for President Trump, and there are very few Democrats who are in favor of or independents who are in favor of impeachment. And obviously that's misreading the map, because that map is not showing popular support. It's just basically showing the amount of territory that was won by either party in the 2016 presidential election, and the fact that Republican vote tends to spread out over sparsely populated counties makes that map look like there's a lot of Republicans in the country, when the truth is that the United States is basically a 50-50 country.
And so something that, as we're here, we're talking about like how charts lie and essentially how like people easily misinterpret these photos essentially that you see when it comes to different stories. And I started thinking, I wanted to ask you, are they ever drawn intentionally? And of course, you give me a perfect example there. They're used intentionally. Do you ever see this outside of politics?
Oh yeah, it happens. It happens quite a lot. So it happens, for example, with marketers, right? If a marketer wants to convince you, for example, of how good their product is, they may, for example, show you a bar graph comparing the quality of their product in comparison to the quality of the product of their competitors, and they may, for example, cut off the vertical axis of the bar graph to exaggerate the differences between the bars. And I have a few examples of that in the book itself. But more often than not, and this is something that I warn about in the book, charts are usually not intentionally created with the purpose of deceiving people, to deceive people. What happens more often than not is that our cognitive biases, in particular, our tendency, our cognitive trait of projecting what we want to believe onto the things that we see every day, lead us sometimes to basically misread charts in ways that confirm our pre-existing opinions. We call that the confirmation bias, right? And I have tons of examples of that in the book as well.
So what do we need to look for? What do we need to take note of? Let's go back to election and politics. What do we need to take note of to try and help ourselves read these things correctly, regardless of what information is kind of being pushed at us?
Yeah, so How Charts Lie, actually the title could have been, perhaps it would be a less catchy title, but the title could have been How to Become a Better Reader of Charts. That's basically what the book is about, right? So first of all, you need to look at where the data comes from. Or so what is the source of the data? So if a chart, a map, a graph, an infographic, whatever, is presented to you without quoting the source, mentioning the source, distrust it, period, right? The chart should disclose where the information comes from. And then if you have a minute, it can take you a long way to understand a chart better if you can take a look at the primary source, and I have examples of how to do this, just to make sure that the chart is actually showing what it claims to be measuring, which sometimes doesn't happen. So we need to be careful with that. We need to look beyond the chart. Second thing is that we need to ask ourselves whether the chart is distorting the information in any way. For example, the bar chart that I explained before with a truncated axis that exaggerates the differences between the bars. We need to ask ourselves, for example, also whether we are seeing in the chart what we want to see, right? Whether we are projecting. So we need to be careful and apply a mantra that I repeat a couple of times in the book that goes, a chart shows only what it shows and nothing else. Everything else that you see in a chart is often what is going on in your brain, not in the chart itself. So we need to curb that impulse to project what we want to believe onto the chart. And then, just a few other things such as, is the chart showing the uncertainty of the data? Because data is never absolutely certain, right? The numbers that we see in the media, right? Polls, for example, right? This candidate is going to get 45% of the vote. This other candidate is going to get 44% of the vote. And the media will claim this candidate, 45%, is ahead of this other candidate, 44%. And it may happen that the uncertainty surrounding those two numbers, called point estimates, those two numbers, is so wide that you cannot really claim that one of the candidates is ahead of the other. Right? Even if it's 45 and 44, the level of uncertainty around those estimates may be too large.
So my takeaway is like the best way to start reading charts better is don't look at it quickly, right? Take some time.
Exactly. That's exactly the first piece of advice that I give in the book is that one of the things that we need to do as a society, I think, is to convince people and start cultivating what I would call a culture of attention. And again, in the case of charts, we need to abandon the myth that, for example, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That's not true, because that may lead us to basically, again, take a look at a chart and assume that we are interpreting correctly, when more often than not, that's not the case. You need to stop and actually read it, because charts are not meant to be seen. They are meant to be read if you want to interpret them correctly. So attention is critical, yes.
That is great. Alberto Cairo, professor of visual journalism at the University of Miami and author of How Charts Lie. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening. This was a fun conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, we will be right back with Kina Collins, actually a US congressional candidate out of Illinois. Stay with us.
People work hard for what they have, and if you want more, you gotta do it yourself.
Stock stories bring headlines to life in an instant, whether you work on Wall Street or in Wichita. Stock report cards and professional analyst buy and sell ratings help gut check your thought process. Buy stock, take profits, and manage risk. And the Idea Feed is your daily one-stop investment shop with videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes, because you need ideas, not lectures. And live in-app chat from when you want to talk to someone, but you don't actually want to talk.
So what'd you think?
With unlimited commission-free stock trades and great ideas from real traders. Visit doe.com/TYT.
People still don't know what the word feminist actually means. Not even that, people are still angered by the word.
People think feminist is a bad word, but it's not.
There are gradations, there are different waves. The people who are against gender equality love to use like militant feminists as the representatives of all feminists. It's untrue.
I don't know why you'd be threatened by strong women unless you were an incredibly weak man. If you don't have equal rights, or you're not treated the same way, well, wouldn't you be angry?
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. No,
We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy.
Cenk is oddly, scarily competitive.
Oh, it's insane. I play basketball against him. It's just like, how are you good at this?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Idarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons, are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
The Hour of Fire is brought to you by Brooke, and Brooke.
Yes, Brooke's got it.
Okay.
Take it.
All
you
right.
guys know I really like compliments.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
Right, so that's it. We will settle it.
I want to see this.
Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't. Scandal at TYT.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Hey there, welcome back to the conversation. I'm Brooke Thomas, and next up, Kina Collins is actually joining us, U.S. congressional candidate out of Illinois' 7th district. Kina, good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Oh my goodness, Brooke, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So tell our viewers, first up, I always ask, why are you running for Congress?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for 22 years, we've had the same leadership. And for 22 years, the cost of living has risen. Healthcare has become super unaffordable and our wages have remained the same. I think that we can be doing way better as a party. The messaging can be way stronger. And for me, the 2020 elections are about a return of representative democracy. And that means transparency, accountability, and putting working class families first.
So we have a clip here of your campaign announcement, and there's something you said in it that I want to ask you about. So first, let's take a look at that.
When I was 7, I saw a child shot and murdered in front of my home. I knew the victim, I knew the shooter, and ending gun violence in this country has fueled me ever since. My father is a factory worker. My mother, a crossing guard and certified nursing assistant. Both of them are union strong. Organizing is in my blood, from protests to policy. When we shut down Chicago fighting for justice, we exposed corruption and forced City Hall to clean house. Saying that the candidates who stand behind me are the best and the brightest. When the rights of women and girls were under attack in our country, I co-authored civil rights legislation in Illinois to protect them. Powerhouse women that not only changed Illinois policy, and I did not back down until we won. Now, we're taking the fight to Washington. We need leaders who will reject corporate money and take on difficult political fights with the urgency that each and every one of us deserve.
So I want to go back to that moment you said when you were 7 years old. What happened there? And then also tell me how you think that shaped who you are as a candidate, who you could be as a congressperson.
Yeah, so they were teenagers from my neighborhood, from my block. And I'm from the city of Chicago, which is about 85% of the district that I'm running in. I was born and raised in this district, Brooke. And so I have the battle scars and the triumphs that have come along with growing up in a marginalized community in the Illinois 7th Congressional District. But these were just two teenagers from my neighborhood who somehow thought that the conflict resolution that they could have was by gunning each other down. And it changed the entire trajectory of my life. I went through Chicago public schools, K through 12. I became an anti-violence advocate, worked with the violence interrupters, and then went to school at Louisiana State University, where I became the Louisiana regional organizer for gun violence prevention and criminal justice reform through the Center for American Progress. And essentially, all across the country, I want to say that my story is unique, but 21 years later, and there are more 7-year-olds, not just in the city of Chicago, but across the country, who are watching their friends and their neighborhood, children in their neighborhood get gunned down too.
And so that brings up a question that I have, and I always think about this, and I want to ask someone who's from Chicago, absolutely. How national media, and even sometimes the president, and specifically the South Side of Chicago, and how it's spoken about, and how the narrative around that, and sometimes I watch it and I think that that's not all Chicago is. On one hand, these stories need to be reported and something needs to be done about this, but I think you get this idea that there are people just sitting around okay with it. And what are your thoughts when you see how these parts of Chicago are spoken about nationally?
It's extremely frustrating because the people who are boots on the ground are Black and brown residents, particularly and namely Black women and brown women in these communities who are on the front lines. They are getting the resources, crowdsourcing from the community because we're not getting the federal resources or the state resources that we need for mental health facilities, for looking at this as a public health epidemic. And so it is frustrating. And that was the impetus for my run. And actually, my campaign color, one of the signature colors on my campaign is orange because I'm a gun violence prevention advocate. And I want every GOP member and I want the NRA and every corporate Dem to know that I'm coming for that seat. And so it's just to say that we need a return of representative democracy and we need the voices of those people in those communities speaking to what's happening. Now, what's interesting is Donald Trump in particular would love to talk about the city of Chicago and the violence that happens in Chicago, but we know that Illinois has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. And what he did was select Mike Pence as his VP pick, and Mike Pence was the governor of Indiana. Well, 85% of the guns illegally trafficked into Chicago come from Indiana. So, if we're going to talk about the violence and the guns that are on the streets, where do you think we got the guns from? And so we need wide sweeping reform, but we also need restorative justice practices and stop looking at this as through a punitive lens and more of a restorative lens.
Can we talk about Illinois' Council on Women and Girls Act? Am I right that you co-wrote that?
Absolutely. Yeah. In 2017, Donald Trump got rid of the White House Council on Women and Girls, which was an Obama era policy that was brought up or headed by Tina Chin, Valerie Jarrett, and Mrs. Obama. And it essentially forced federal agencies to look at their policies through a gender lens. And so once I found out that it was eliminated on the federal level, I came back. I traveled to 68 counties out of 102 in the state of Illinois. And I co-authored House Bill 5544, the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act, which protected the rights of the transgender community and non-binary community, centered the voices of women of color and working class women, and expanded reproductive health care and education. This was paramount in Illinois because we had no idea that the heartbeat bill was going to come or that the Georgia bill or Ohio bills were coming. And so I built a really strong coalition. We threw down, I took on the GOP, I took on a billionaire Republican governor in Illinois, and we won. And it is a living, breathing law now in Illinois.
So I want to talk more about you as a candidate. So let's try to get to some issues. We'll do like a rapid fire. Where do you stand on Medicare for all?
I support Medicare for all, single payer Medicare for all. And my job before I announced was serving as a national organizer, organizing doctors and medical students around Medicare for all.
And that's also something that I think I've seen you talk about. You had to forfeit your own health insurance to run for Congress, right?
Absolutely. So once I decided to run, I had to become a full-time candidate, which meant that I couldn't pay COBRA. I couldn't afford any of the premiums that were available. So.
Yes, who can? Let's talk about criminal justice reform. You touched on that a little bit a second ago. What needs to be done? Yeah. I mean, it's a long list. But.
Yeah. So number one is that in my district in particular, and many districts that look like mine, there's a decriminalizing, or we need to decriminalize poverty. There's a criminalization of poverty. And so we see people who are addicted to heroin or crack cocaine or different substances who have been thrown in jail and not given the treatment that they need, right? And so I believe in ending cash bail bond. I believe in looking at restorative justice practices as a means to come to a solution for criminal justice reform. Obviously, I don't believe in charging children as adults. I think we need to completely abolish capital punishment across the country. And I think that we need to also be looking at reentry into society. We need to restore the rights of individuals who have served time fully. And we have seen that that's been the biggest problem. Once folks come out of prison, they're not, their full rights are not restored.
You've also talked about the need to stop the influence of dark money in elections, right? Tell me more.
Yeah, so during my time at PNHP, where I was serving as a national organizer, organizing 20,000 doctors and medical students around single payer Medicare for all, we would do power rankings for congressional leaders who took the most big pharmaceutical money and big private insurance money. And lo and behold, my congressman, the incumbent, Congressman Davis, he was at the top of the list of taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from corporate PACs, big pharma, and private insurance. Now, this is important important because in our district, we have the largest life expectancy gap in the country. So in a wealthy portion of our district, the average life expectancy is about 90 years of age. If you travel a 9-mile radius to the south side of Chicago, which is also in the district, the life expectancy drops to 60. So it's a 30-year life expectancy gap just based off of your zip code. And we know that it's not enough for politicians to stick their political flag in the ground and say they support Medicare for all, but you're taking money from corporate PACs and big pharma and private insurance companies who don't care if we live or die. And so for me, our campaign is 100% not taking any corporate PAC money, no private equity money, no money from the gun lobby, obviously, and we're 100% people powered and grassroots.
So I want to read something that I found in a piece that you wrote in Al Jazeera, and I want you to break it down for our viewers. When the closest to the pain are closest to the power, the US will experience a true transformation.
Yeah, that piece was written, and I actually have an op-ed piece coming out through Teen Vogue about how Democrats love Black women until it's time to elect us. And so for me, that is not the impetus for my run, but representation does matter.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if we're talking about a party who says that we are the backbone of this party, then why are you not investing in the pipeline to elevate Black women into leadership? And so that's an issue that, I have in my district as well. My state rep, my city councilman, my Cook County commissioner, and my congressman are all men. That is not representative democracy, and we could be doing better as a party. And so that Al Jazeera article was just talking about how Black women, we're tired of being everyone's martyrs. We need to be elevated into leadership. And, we're going to try our hardest to continue to push that envelope and that message in this primary.
Kina Collins, thank you so much for being here with us. You are running for United States Congress in Illinois 7th District. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Brooke.
All right, that's it for the conversation. I feel like it always goes by so quickly. Thank you for having me and thank you for watching.
All right, welcome back to the postgame. We promised you guys a clip of a Republican fail in the postgame. Boy, have we got a historic one. So seriously, we are going to do that clip a little bit later. It's in the middle of the impeachment hearings, but obviously we have massive news. So normally postgame's just for members, but it just so happens that while we're live, something historic has happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Donald Trump impeached, historic vote. Only the third president ever to be impeached, Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, now Donald Trump. Obviously Richard Nixon resigned in shame before getting impeached. Also, equally obviously, it does mean that we will be going to the Senate for a trial. When you're impeached, it does not mean you are removed. It means the House has said you have done something deeply wrong and unconstitutional, should be removed from office. And now he will move on to the Senate for a trial where he could get convicted or acquitted. Only 2 Democrats voted no, Colin Peterson and Jeff Van Drew, who is not going to be a Democrat for much longer. He has said that he's going to switch over to the Republican Party, and this was his first act in doing so. Tulsi Gabbard voted present, and all the other Democrats voted yes. All the Republicans voted no. Justin Amash used to be a Republican and now is an independent. He voted yes. He is just as right-wing as he has ever been, but he said, I can read. And he read the Mueller report, and he said he was already guilty at that point of obstruction. I thought the Democrats should have charged him with 5 articles of impeachment of the 5 different crimes that he committed, but nonetheless, guilty, at least in terms of impeachment. And it is a wonderful day in America. So one more for you guys. Donald Trump impeached. Hey, look at that, we made America great again.
We have a long way to go. So a lot of people are celebrating. I'm glad, I'm glad that the House has made the right decision here. Now remember, they're voting on 2 different articles of impeachment. So you just gave some of the information about abuse of power. And so I want to give you the votes when it comes to obstruction of Congress, which is the second article, because those tallies are still being compiled right now. There were 3 Democrats so far who voted no. And 9 who voted, 1 who voted present, and then 9 no votes. Yeah.
So the second count's happening now. Already are impeached though on the first count.
Yeah.
Abuse of office. Look, we talked about this over the last couple of days. We thought the charges should have been not only broader but more specific. So on Ukraine, there's 2 different charges. Asking for a foreign government to assist your campaign is a campaign finance violation, meaning it is illegal, it is a felony, and they should have been, it is clearly a high crime and misdemeanor. They should have laid that out more specifically. They could have done abusing his office as an umbrella, as a separate article of impeachment. There would have been nothing wrong with that. Also, they could have done extortion, bribery, or they in terms of the quid pro quo, because there was a quid pro quo, there's no question about that, saying I'm basically extorting you, I am withholding these funds that the Congress already approved until you help me in my personal political campaign. That is a separate crime, a second crime, and in fact, bribery is one of the very, very few crimes laid out in the Constitution as a reason for impeachment. So that's 2. The third one is another campaign finance violation. That's the hush money payments to his mistresses. His co-conspirator, Michael Cohen, his former lawyer, is in prison for that same exact crime right now. Would have been incredibly easy to impeach him on that. And if there was any justice at all, there would be a conviction on that as well. By the way, later he can be charged with these crimes as actual criminal offenses. So this is a political trial to remove him from office because he has committed crimes so heinous he needs to be removed. But later you could actually bring him to a court of law. And obviously that's how Michael Cohen wound up in prison for the same crime. And then you've got the two different obstruction charges. One is the one they're voting on now. He will not cooperate with Congress. He is willfully breaking the law and not complying with their subpoenas. That is one of the articles of impeachment they had gotten ready for Richard Nixon. But there's a second obstruction charge they could have brought and should have brought, which is the 10 counts of obstruction that Robert Mueller clearly laid out in his report. That's why Justin Amash, one of the most conservative members of the House, at that time said Donald Trump should be impeached. And so there was 5 excellent charges they could have brought against him. As it is, they went with 2 umbrella charges. I'm afraid that when it comes to the court of public opinion, when we go to the Senate for the trial, that it's going to be a little vague. I wish they had done it a different way. Nonetheless, he is impeached. And the absurd idea that the Democratic leadership had in the beginning was that he would look forward to impeachment. He most certainly does not. He wrote a crazy letter yesterday saying how ugly the word impeachment is and how they've ruined its reputation. If you're wondering if that makes any sense, no, it does not. But he hates being impeached. He hates it, and it happened today. So number one, it is important to, and this is 99% of the point I want to make, it is important that we have rule of law in this country. And if you let the president break these laws and there are no consequences, then we don't have a democracy. And so that's why today was really, really important. Just on a smaller note, the 1% is, it's also wonderful to get under his skin.
Yes, so I am monitoring his Twitter account. He has not tweeted about this yet, but I'm sure he will.
He's at a rally right now. I'm sure that he'll rage about it tonight.
So some of our viewers have been writing in and they're saying that during his rally, he seems to be struggling a little bit. So we'll see the video later. But I do want to go to one video that got a lot of attention here at TYT. So after the vote happened, apparently there was an interesting moment involving House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Let's watch.
On this vote, the yeas are 230, the nays are 197, present is 1. Article 1 is adopted. The question.
I guess people were about to clap and celebrate and she stopped it right away.
Yeah, look, the one side is totally vicious and attacks nonstop and is voracious in their attacks. The other side's like, oh, we're so sorry we impeached. Don't clap. I know why. They're trying to say, hey, we're prayerful and somber and this is not for political or partisan gain and that's why she did that. It's a fine strategy. I would be much harsher against the president because it's not just the law, it's the court of public opinion. And they always think, oh my God, we gotta be more civil. That's not the correct political strategy. And they should have gone much harder after him. But look, at the end of the day, they just impeached him. So thank God, God bless. And I'm ecstatic that this has happened. So credit where credit is due.
Definitely.
Okay.
I have nothing else to add.
So. All right. Whew.
It's kind of, we're in the post game, so fuck it. It's kind of fucked up when you're so disillusioned and discouraged with politics and media and everything that like you can't even get yourself to celebrate a good moment. This is a good moment, but I can't help but think about all the negatives, like what's gonna happen in the Senate. I'm sorry to be like the pessimistic one. You guys should celebrate, don't be a bitter queen like me.
Okay, I'm gonna say something a little controversial. The progressives in the House should not have listened to Pelosi. They should have raised their voice more in saying more articles of impeachment, more articles. He committed a crime, he committed 5 crimes, crime, criminal. Go on TV. I know Pelosi doesn't want you to do it, who cares? She's not the boss of you. She's just not the boss of you. Your voters are the boss of you. So.
I'm okay with how this all played out. It is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, we're okay with it until we go to the Senate. That's why what you said triggered it. And then the senators go, it's vague, and people are like, oh, it's confusing. What's abuse of power? Crime. It's a crime. It's 5 different crimes. Say it's a crime. It's always the wrong strategy. I'm trying to give credit where credit is due. I'm thrilled. It's always the lowest bar ever, right?
Yep.
Like, hey, we got Obamacare, which was Romney care when we had a supermajority. And Nancy Pelosi gets all the credit in the world for, like, in my opinion, the easiest thing in the world. No, they might have lost some conservative Democrats. Oh, come on. They had a supermajority, okay? And they did the bare minimum. They didn't even put the public option in. Again, here, impeachment of Donald Trump on 2 articles that could have been much harsher. Great, I'm happy, but again, it's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So, Democratic Party, the bare minimum. I couldn't do it. I was trying to give them credit, and I did give them credit, but I can't help but be honest with you guys.
I'm the devil on your shoulder, so we should move on. Let's
I
make fun of Republicans. You ready?
Okay, yes, let's do it.
Okay, so earlier, Republican Representative Debbie Lesko embarrassed herself during the impeachment hearings, and she was called out on Twitter by Oliver Willis, who's a senior writer with the American Independent. He wrote on Twitter, attempting to deflect on Trump's behalf during a Rules Committee hearing on impeachment, GOP Representative Debbie Lesko accuses several Democrats of previously voting to bring up an impeachment vote, but then something happens, and I don't want to give it away. Take a look.
Actually, articles of impeachment on the floor of the House of Representatives that if it had not been tabled, you actually would have been voting on the floor of the House of Representatives for articles of impeachment against the president. The one that was on December 6, 2017 was because you didn't like that President Trump said something negative about the NFL anthem protest and called a member of Congress wacky, and all nine of you here voted against tabling that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, if I could just interrupt, I don't think Ms. Scanlon, myself, or Ms. Shalala were members of the House.
I was on the wrong one. I apologize. Thank you for pointing that out to me.
Man.
Okay, so those are new members of the House. They were not there in the vote that she was referencing. It's a typical Republican fail, and it's fun. But I got to tell you, the surprising part of that clip is that she said sorry.
Yeah, yes. That was actually like she took it like a champ.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a hilarious thing, but I want to give a Republican credit for actually admitting that a fact is a fact and even apologizing for getting it wrong. I don't know if she walked it back later, like, I didn't mean to apologize. They were in Congress, I don't care. But that's what we're used to.
I know.
After 3-4 years of this gaslighting, when a Republican acknowledges a simple fact, it's a bit stunning.
I know he's a senator, but can you imagine how Lindsey Graham would handle that situation?
This is an outrage. If I say you were in the House, you were in the House, you were in a house. Okay, that's what they would have said.
Totally. So yeah, that credit where credit is due, and that's a very embarrassing moment. It's a very public, embarrassing moment. Like, just check the names. Check the names. All right.
She's like, I didn't know we were doing facts today.
I know. All right, let's talk about wine caves.
Oh, you want to talk about wine caves? Okay, fascinating.
Yeah, didn't you want to talk about wine caves?
No. I'm okay with it. So look, I've got good friends who love wine, and I'm sure a lot of you love wine, and everybody's got their different vice, as we've talked about. But I don't know anything that sounds more elitist than sommelier.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I don't think I've ever used that word in my life. Sommelier. I don't even know how to say it.
That's why you mumble it. Okay, yeah. I went over to Jonathan's wine cave, and his sommelier was there.
I'm gonna say something that some people might be upset about, and please, like, don't take it personally. But it's true. You have to acknowledge it's true. Like, look deep within your soul and just acknowledge that what I'm about to say is 100% fact. There's no such thing as like wine. Like, it all tastes the same. Like I get, like let's keep it real. No, there's different, like red wine obviously tastes different from white wine, and rosé tastes different. Like I get that. There's different like colors or whatever. But within the same color category, it mostly just tastes the same.
Our members who are wine lovers, their heads are exploding right now.
I know. Yes, you have a very advanced palate, and you're gonna pretend like you can taste the difference. No, like it drives me nuts. Like I hate when the waiter like will pour a little taste of the wine, and then I have to pretend like I know what I'm doing, right? Like I have to pretend like, and I do this, and I sniff it, take a little mini sip.
Well, that's your fault. That's your fault for pretending.
I know. Because you feel pressured because you don't want to come off as like a
Here's what
unsophisticated.
Oh, that's me. I'm unsophisticated. They pour the wine and I go, look, brother, I don't know. Yeah, sure, good. That's what I do every time. Okay, yes, it has alcohol. Let's proceed. Okay, so a friend of mine did a blind test taste over Thanksgiving. Not for wine, but for Coke, Pepsi, and Diet Coke. Okay.
Oh, you can taste the difference.
Okay, so that's what everybody says. So that's why he wanted to do it. And there was two guys who were super adamant. One guy was like, no, dude, like no way, I know. I know for a fact. You got 2 out of 3 wrong. Okay.
Well, that makes sense. I think Coke and Pepsi, and people are going to disagree with me on this, mostly taste the same, right?
Okay.
But Diet Coke has that like sugary aspartame taste.
Yeah, I think so. But as it turned out, a lot of people got it wrong. And so that was interesting. So the other guy who was adamant was me. Of course, having drunk way too much Coke in my life. Clip it. Anyway. I'm like, no, I know, okay? I know the difference between Coke and Pepsi, let alone Diet Coke. Did it? 3 out of 3.
Yeah.
I did it like this. Coke, Diet Coke, Pepsi, okay? I'm exaggerating by a little bit, okay? Because I want to be careful not to get it wrong, but I was a little cocksure. Clip it. It means confident in the English language, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And sometimes you'll go to, you know how I go to open houses in houses I have no intention of buying, nor could I afford in a lifetime.
Right there with you.
Sometimes they have wine caves, not wine caves, like little wine areas. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, no. They're like, oh, and I'm like, no, not at all interesting.
You know, okay, so the place that I live in, I was very fortunate, saved up, and was able to get a little condo. And one of the things that like appealed to me when I went to the open house for it was that it has like a little wet bar. You wanna know how much I use that wet bar? 0% of the time. Like I never use that wet bar, ever. It's such a waste of space. And like, I don't know why I was like impressed by it. Like I'm not a big drinker, right?
Edwin's asking what's a wet bar, and I'm not sure I know. Is it just like a little mini bar area like this?
Yeah, so it's just like a little bar in our living room area that has a sink, like a little mini sink.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's what I thought, yeah.
It actually came in very handy when there was a plumbing disaster in our kitchen and we had a mold issue and then we had to like literally rip everything out of the kitchen and redo it. And we didn't have a kitchen, so we used the wet bar area as the kitchen, and that was useful. But other than that, like, there should be a pot bar, right?
No, I was thinking of that when we were talking about wine cave. Like, could you imagine if like pot becomes popular enough and acceptable enough that they have a room like with good ventilation that doesn't affect the rest of the house? That actually would be super helpful. Like, you know how they have the cigar rooms?
Yeah.
They have a pot room, right?
Oh my God, I have to tell you about what happened in our HOA meeting recently. You're gonna crack up. But go ahead, continue.
Just out of curiosity, some of you will know it and send it to us. Is there a sommelier for pot? Like a potier? I don't know, Sydney Potier, no. Like, I don't know what the word is. There's probably a word.
I'm sure there is.
There's gotta be, I'm sure there's one for beer.
But with pot, like unlike wine, you can tell the difference. When you smell different strains, you can tell the difference. Sometimes you get like a fruity pebbles type scent Sometimes there's a blueberry. Yeah, I'm serious, okay? I would know. So this is what happened in our HOA meeting. And you guys are gonna crack up because I'm so ridiculous. So our water bill for the building has gone up 200% since last year, right?
What is it, health insurance?
Huh?
What is it, health insurance going up 200%?
Oh yeah, I know. Right. So the board suspects that there's a leak somewhere and they're trying to figure out where the leak is. You know, obviously like there's more water being used, but no one in the building is using more water than
There's a leaker in the building, get the whistleblower.
Right. So I stupidly, let me just set the context. Everyone in the building is retired, with the exception of me and my husband. Everyone is retirement age, like they're living their best life. You know, they don't have to work, so most of the time they're in our business. But whatever, love them. I've come to love them. And I raised my hand at one point, and I said, I was like, "Is there a possibility that someone could be growing marijuana in their unit?" And then I look around and I'm like, I can't believe I just said that. Like, because some people, like people who illegally grow, sometimes do it in their apartments and they waste a bunch of water because it takes a lot of water to grow the plants. Anyway, I've heard things.
You've heard things.
No, like I don't do that. Don't get me wrong, I don't do that. But like I've heard of people doing that and it's been a problem and then people get evicted, blah, blah, blah. And everyone just kind of looked around like, was that a serious question?
They're like, Gertrude, are you growing weed?
But
so what, it turned out there actually was a leak and it created mold?
So get this, you need to hire specialists who can inspect the building and determine where the leak is. Hopefully there is a leak because that 200% increase in the water bill is crazy. But it costs money for those specialists. And so they're charging like $2,500 to inspect the entire building. And then we also-
Not per apartment.
No, not per apartment.
Oh, thank God.
The entire building. And then we also found out that, so for a week straight, we didn't have hot water, okay?
Really?
Yeah, I wanted
That's
to-
actually a disaster.
Oh, you have no idea, disaster of epic proportions. I would go to like my mom's house to take a shower. I thought about getting a gym membership just to use showers, okay? And then Sunday night, which was the last night where we didn't have hot water, I was like so desperate to take a shower, I tried to do a cold shower. Have you guys ever tried to take a cold shower?
Of course.
It is the worst thing in the world, okay? It is torture. Okay, so like you don't even need to do waterboarding for enhanced interrogation. Just make people take cold showers.
I'm pretty sure waterboarding is a little worse.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I'm saying you don't even have to go that far. Okay. So, but anyway, so they found out what was wrong with the giant water heater that is shared among all the units. It's an old building, which is why I could afford it. And the part that we need is so expensive that each unit has to pay an emergency assessment of $2,500.
Each unit?
Yes.
Oh, God damn it, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how people live.
I don't either. But like, that's life, man. Like people romanticize home ownership. And look, there's a really positive component of it, which is you don't get screwed by landlords who sell to these developers who then evict you. You don't have to worry about out of control rent increases out of nowhere. But there are huge downsides because if you're, barely getting by paying your mortgage and stuff, any type of like surprise really screws you over.
Yeah. So last thing, we'll end on my favorite thing. The wet bar reminded me of it. I have a little extra fridge that we used to have a TYT now in my house because Dave was going to throw it away, and I store my Coke and beer in it, and I love things that are really cold, drinks that are really cold, especially Coke.
Colds must be, drinks must be cold, you're right.
Yes, but people don't like the fridge to be that cold, at least my wife doesn't. So I got my own fridge with the Coke and the beers and I crank it to almost freezing. So when I open the Coke, it's actually slightly frozen.
That sounds good.
Okay, I'll take that over a wine cave any day, okay? God, I love that little fridge. I'm just telling you, I recommend it. If you like cold drinks and your wife or husband won't let you, little fridge, pro tip, I'm just saying. Okay, don't say we never helped you. All right, guys, much love. Trump is impeached. Great day in America. We'll see you tomorrow.